can make the best decisions with that. So with this, it asks for my resume, which everyone has a copy of. This is, I didn't need a resume to run for town council, but for this position, I'm duly qualified. So I've got an extensive career in working in the restaurant and in business. I'm currently a teacher. I've also worked for the City of Chicago as a project manager in the Department of Business License and Affairs. So I have knowledge about government work. So I just wanted to first say thank you very much for considering me today for that position with the LPA. I wanted to also, from a teacher's perspective, teaching youth today, how important it is to keep a cohesive, continual information stream to these children. Environment is huge. Every one of you remember exactly what school you went to. Every one of you remember exactly what teacher made your day, and every one of you know that. Unfortunately, though, I want you to know this as a teacher for this county, is that it's about money. And if we can't raise the money, if they can't raise the money, maybe we can, because I know that that's a possibility too. But we need to work with them and in conclusion with them. But I will tell you this, every teacher will be supportive because they know how important cohesiveness is to these children. Lastly, I wanted to talk about before Thanksgiving, I wanted to say that there is a movement, the Fort Myers Beach movement. I don't know if you guys are aware. I know that I've been invited to these things, and I've come to them, where we did the candlelight visual, where we as a community, were able to walk over the bridge in memorial of those we have lost and those that are survived. And it was a very heartwarming thing, people crying, people taking the effort and hugging and getting to relive their memories. And I think that, as you can see, I was out here again because they had another movement where they had taken over a music on the sunset celebration, and I thought, just listening to the people, how happy they were. So I just wanted to say, I hope you guys go forward with that. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you guys will
Thanks, Pat.
wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Tahita Mateen.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ms. Mateen, Small Business Administration. I'm a public affairs specialist handling Lee County and a couple other surrounding counties. So I just want to give you a couple updates from the SBA. First of all, I want the community to know that SBA, even though we're the Small Business Administration, we are here to assess businesses of any size, homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations as well. I just want to reiterate that those business owners that have already registered with FEMA, they're going to be sent directly to the SBA. For those homeowners and those renters that applied with FEMA, they may get a letter in the mail that says they're sending you to the SBA. Do not skip that step. That step is very important because if for some reason the SBA cannot help that survivor, we will refer them back to FEMA. It's an automatic process. They don't have to do anything for additional grant consideration. So we just want to make sure that, we have that information out there. Again, business owners, they're applying with FEMA. They're getting a letter that says go to the SBA, but a lot of people just stop when they see the word loan and they stop. But right now, in the state of Florida, with these declared counties, we have approved, this morning it was like $960 million. Lee County is $500 million of that approval. So the opportunity is out there. We just want to continue to urge people to submit your application. Do not throw away those decline letters if you received one from FEMA or SBA. It tells you exactly how to submit your appeal, how to reconsider. So there's help out there. SBA is at every disaster recovery center, and we have standalone business recovery centers as well. So any SBA applicant can go in there. We can pull your application up, go line by line, identify any mistakes if there was any. So I will be in this county, for a while doing outreach. I left my car. I'll leave my car with a couple of business cards as well. So if you have any questions, any updates from the SBA, just let me know. And I believe that is all I have in my notes. I'll hang around for a little bit in case there are any questions. So subject to any questions, that's all that I have.
Thank you very much.
Aria Cox.
Hi, my name is Aria Cox from Fort Myers Beach Elementary. I have one question to ask you. Are you going to rebuild Fort Myers Beach Elementary? Because there doesn't look like there's much work being done, because as you can see, there's a big pile of trash right next to my school.
Well, Aria, normally we don't answer questions during public comment, but since you were so brave to come up and ask that question, we don't have the decision-making ability to do that, but I can tell you that this council supports that school being rebuilt, and we'll be with you tomorrow at that school meeting to let them know that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Captain Melody King.
Good morning, everyone out here. Good morning to Town Council. Congratulations on your new seats in office. Lace up your boots. So I wanted to take a moment to properly introduce myself as I stand in front of a massive Fort Myers Beach movement. My name is Melody King. I moved out here to your tiny piece of paradise on April 1st, 2019. And I proclamate the love for Fort Myers Beach on the microphone on the pirate ship cruise of Florida. So I came out here with really tiny hands and a massive mission myself. I was Assistant Director of Operations for the third largest IT company in Silicon Valley during the social dilemma for 12 years. I had 138 remote employees that were high-level infrastructure rebuild, design solution architects, and we took them through all the stages of implementation, past design, and we held their hand onto a managed service support team. We created the team, we created the call center, and we came to call for all of those struggling businesses in the time of change. So with that being said, when I moved to the island, I was a loudmouth bartender building a party business, and our slogan has been for the past 6 years, to party with purpose. We created an impact club. We had parties on the pirate ship where we rented out the pirate ship, and 100 people with $100 showed up. Can I get some math on that? What's $100 with 100 people? $10,000, and we did that in 90 minutes. So the reason I bring this up today, I got back after I was in search and rescue for 13 days on our island, and I pulled out 17 living souls from our mangroves that were not attended to by our federal government. I walked over the bridge, and I was in every golf cart, sandbar, you call it the trucks, and I was showing them the addresses to the grid that no longer existed. I didn't see my son for 13 days, and I was displaced from my dog that I just got that has brain trauma. So with that being said, I removed myself from the community, and I went up to Tampa to see where it was supposed to happen. And I got all the video footage of them hunkering down, and I tell you what, no one was prepared for Ian, especially not our children. All right? So with that being said, somebody asked me with the party business I had to simply create an invite on Facebook, and I thought 51 friends would show up. Near 500 community members needed to walk together. And I did that with these tiny hands, 40 minutes, cardboard boxes, and spray paint, and the performance from the pirate ship cruise of Florida, which is why I can stand in front of you guys all today and not be in tears after what she just asked our council, which was a great answer. We are all different, and we all belong on Fort Myers Beach. We do not mourn and grieve 8 to 5, 9 to 6, or 9 to 8 based on curfews, and the Fort Myers Beach movement stepped in front of the community. I also have foundations. I have a 501c3 pending.
Captain King, I need you to wrap up. You've had your 3 minutes.
So I just wanted to properly introduce myself to let you guys know that Beach Talk Radio's idea we've been doing, and we raised $12,000 for our local musicians. So we're going to continue to do that for the community. Like this, but I'm a real community member, and I support everything you guys are doing here. So thank you for coming. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys for what you're doing to make this place better.
Jesse Field.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to come up here and speak. I'm fairly new to Fort Myers Beach. My family moved here in August and found a place in November. We live on Denora. We're one of the lucky families that has a house that's standing. What I can tell you is we moved here really for three things. 1, freedom. 2, school. 3, community. We got them all. We got every single one of them. Right now, we're fighting to keep our school open, which is incredible. I can't even believe I'm saying that. It's literally a fantastic school. I came from California, which I thought it was a 10 school. Makes that school look like a 5. All the events that are put on, Dan, I see you at every single one. We really appreciate it. It's amazing seeing the community come together. Obviously, the next 2 to 5 years are going to be really important for what this community turns into. And I say community because the school is the heart of the community. Taking that away kills the community. That's what it does. I promised myself I wouldn't get broken up here. It's really hard because I watch my kids jump on a bus every single day to school they're not really happy with for a lot of reasons. One, they're leaving a school in a community that's amazing. And they're being told, hey, after you pretty much lost everything, now you have to go off island to go to a school where you don't really know a whole lot of new kids that are there. We're going to fight every single day to make sure that that school comes back. We're not going anywhere. We're going to look at all avenues to make sure the school stays here on the beach. We appreciate your support in that fight. In addition to that, I've made a decision for myself to help this community in any way I possibly can. I've also put my resume in for the LPA. I think my background is well suited for it. I've always worked with big teams. I run a team of 18 people. What we do is collaborate and work cross-functionally with multiple departments across the board. And I think it's really important right now to listen more than ever and have a plan so we can work as efficiently as possible and make sure that our process is seamless for everybody on the island, everybody that wants to come on the island, but it starts with the school. We've got to have the school. If we have the school, we bring families in. We bring businesses in. We bring workers in. That is the most important thing, and that's why I'm standing here today. So again, I appreciate your support. I hope everybody shows up tomorrow. We need everybody, power in numbers. You know, that's what's going to make it work. We are strong here. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And we'll continue to be strong because tough times like this make tough people, and we are tough people. So with that, all I ask is show up tomorrow. Consider me for the position. I would really appreciate it. I'm here to help. We're here to help. We're all in it together. And the fact of the matter is, this community is going to be built back better than it ever has, and I'm looking forward to that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
John Koss.
Hi, I'm John Koss. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I want to expand upon a little bit on our effort on the school as parents in the community and what we're doing and coming together. We're going to be in front of the board tomorrow. We have a bunch of speakers. I heard you guys just comment that you're going to be there. I'm truly hoping, I know I can't ask questions, but I'm truly hoping that somebody is going to present a pretty strong statement on behalf of the Beach School. I'll tell you, as one of your constituents, one of the issues that we're having in this process is, I know it's not your purview to handle the school. It's the districts. There's no communication between them and us. We have parents that keep contacting them and going. Now they've sent a board member down. She doesn't tell us anything. So we're just kind of hanging out there thinking the worst. So I'm hoping, or I'm asking, if somehow our town council can get involved in the communication chain with the superintendent's office on either a weekly meeting so they can bring back some information to us and let us know what's going on. Because we're going to stand up and we're going to make demands, and they're going to smile and they're going to say, we hear your demands, and then they're going to do nothing. That's what they've done for the past weeks right now. They've sent one of the board members down. I'm meeting with her later today. She's met with other people from our town. She shakes your hand and basically does nothing, says nothing. And I understand that, you know, we're in a time right now to where there's a lot going on. However, it's been 6 or 7 weeks. Inaction shows your plan. They've done nothing for us except ship our kids to another school. So I would have really appreciated if you guys can, in however way, get involved with us, and either through communication or through somewhere along the means, so we can have some direct communication and get some input back from these people to know how to fight the fight, because make no mistake, this is going to be a fight. Thank you.
John?
That's all I have signed up.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak that hasn't signed up? Yes, sir. Please say your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Cliff Gallagher. And I'd like to say a word about the election. Ray Murphy was a pretty popular guy, but he lost the election. And one of the reasons is people were not allowed on the beach after the hurricane. This also occurred after Hurricane Charlie. People were furious after Charlie at having the bridges shut down and not being allowed to go to their properties. And one would have thought that this would have had some impact. Hopefully, Hurricane Ian is going to have an impact where council will develop guidelines for reopening quickly rather than delaying. The governor had to get involved to get this beach opened again. That should never have happened. Second thing is there was an assumption made by council that every property on the beach was damaged, and you had to have a structural engineer and you had to have an licensed electrician examine the property. The electrician I agree with. Once salt water gets in the component, it's trashed. But the structural engineer was done based on an assumption. You can't assume. You have to follow due process in putting forth a regulation or requirement. There's enough people in this township government, they could walk around to every property here and see if a piling is leaning over or a wall's blown out and say, okay, this one needs a structural engineer. I paid $500 to have a structural engineer come out and do the sign of the cross and say, okay, you're good. I have 8 neighbors on my street that paid $2,000 to have a structural engineer come out to each one of their houses and say, okay, that'll be $2,000, you're good. This is not right. I heard that it was an assumption that everything was damaged, and you proceeded on an assumption, and we all know what assume means. So I'd like to get my $500 back. Is the town going to reimburse me? Because they forced this. They forced this on me. And I had this done even after a FEMA inspector came by and looked at my property.
Time.
I didn't have anything put on it. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Okay.
That's your...
Well, there's one more thing. We got a sheet of paper saying what kind of trailers had to be registered, what kind of motorhomes, et cetera, et cetera. The full faith and credit clause of the Constitution, and before that, the Articles of Confederation says you can't do that. If I've got a registered vehicle from another state, I don't have to register it with Fort Myers Beach.
I understand, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you. Please stick around. We'll have the staff talk to you about that afterwards.
All right.
Anyone else care to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jenny Tardif Paradiso. I'm born and raised here on this island. I'm trying not to get upset. My daughter goes to Fort Myers Beach Elementary School just like I did. My husband came with me the day after the storm, and we went to the school and we looked at the school, and it didn't look that bad. There were some trees down, and all in all, I thought it looked pretty good, you know, compared to our house and all of our neighbors and everything else. And since then, we've been in our house, gutting our house like everybody else has, trying to take care of getting our kids to school. My kids actually one goes to Heights, and now one's at San Carlos busing. But I think the biggest thing that upset me is when I saw photos from this week. The school looks exactly the same inside. There's filth just sitting there. The original building, that's a historic building, is just sitting with muck like this. Like there is not anything being done. And I understand like there's, you know, they only have so much money, and I understand we're in a disaster zone and this is all horrible, and I'm not here to call names or point fingers. I'm very appreciative that the school district did keep our kids with their classes and with their teachers, and they did what they could, but it's not enough. And I need you guys to put some pressure on them, or possibly facilitate it where we can go, and we have hundreds of volunteers ready to go gut that school, but they don't want to let us in. And I understand there's safety concerns, but we've all been dealing with that every day. My house was gutted in 2 weeks. We're 50+ days later, and it's just sitting there. There's toys in Ziploc bags that were inside Tupperwares. Those could have been saved. They can't be saved anymore. But we have to do something. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. Like, you know, my friend Aaron over there said, get a mold truck, put it out front, do something. One little step would mean so much to these families. It is so important. I love this island. I am very proud to be from here, and I'm very proud that my kids are here. I know you guys have a lot of work to do, but please, do as much as you can. Thank you.
Jenny? Anyone else care to speak? Seeing no one else, we'll close public comment. Next item is consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
Achievements.
Oh, did I skip past one? I'm sorry, I did. Local achievements and recognitions. Vice Mayor Adderall.
In the interest of time, I'm going to pass today. There's so many people that are doing so much. I think it's best just for at least for me personally, to pass this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Veach.
I agree with the Vice Mayor, but I do want to just mention the Kiwanis Club for putting on their Thanksgiving event. It was really impressive how much people just wanted to see their neighbors. Everyone's been separated, and it was really like a family get-together. It was really a great event.
Thank you. Councilwoman Woodson?
I mean, I'll say the same thing about Mayhem at the Man Caves this past Saturday. I think it was a huge fundraising event. I think part of it went to the beach, but mostly to Harlem Heights. But it was really an opportunity for everyone to get together. I saw a lot of parents from the beach school there. I saw a lot of kids there. But it was a great event. It's become an annual event, and I hope they keep moving forward with that.
Councilor King?
To go with a couple of people and a name that have kind of been verboten around here. I think it's long past due that we recognize Kim and Ed Ryan and Beach Talk Radio for what they've done for our constituents here on the island. They were an immediate source for information and continue to be so. And then they raised, last I remember, was over $320,000 for beach employees and residents. So I think it's a long overdue honor for them. And I'd like to see them have a day of honor, to be honest with you. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks. I just want to thank the incident management team from Jacksonville. Today's their last day here. They'll be demobilizing and moving out. I've only had the opportunity to work with them for about a week, but I can tell you they have been an extension of the heart of this community. So thank you guys for all your hard work. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but every day these guys are out working, so they're not standing in here, but they have been doing a lot to help us in the background, getting debris removed, getting Times Square cleaned up, getting all these things done that, take a little bit extra help, and they've been here away from their families for 3 weeks now, I believe. So thank you for what you guys have done, and We'll come visit you guys soon. Oh, we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the administrative agenda. First item is the town manager. Mr. Herron, you were out of here, but Vice Mayor Adderholt asked if we could switch it around and do the approval of the H2 Solutions or the discussion of the H2 Solutions contract.
Certainly within your discretion to do so.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just briefly, the reason why I asked to do that, I just think it might be helpful should the H2 Solutions proposal be adopted. It'd be nice to have some of their input on the second item on this in this point. Thank you.
Thank you. John, you want to give us a...
Yeah.
We have not seen anything updated from you.
The operative terms of the agreement that's been proposed by H2 Solutions, subject to council direction, is that they're going to be available for up to 6 months. The agreement can be terminated on 15 days notice, and they will provide all interim town manager services and all administrative actions that involve the town manager as set forth in the town charter, the town code, and state law. In particular, the town charter section 6.03 lists the powers and duties of the town manager. Obviously, there's also the provisions of Chapter 12 of the town code regarding the additional powers of the town manager in times of emergency, which there is a state of a declared local emergency. All those provisions will be incorporated into the agreement, and for that, they are asking to be paid $20,000 a month.
And within that $20,000, is there a carving out, if you will, for lodging assistance? Is that,
I'm sorry, for what?
Of that amount, is a portion of that amount for lodging for their...
Yes. What they've asked is that if they are then going to travel or go or perform services for the town, then they would be paid in accordance with the town's adopted travel policies. For example, I did speak with one of the principals of H2 Solutions, and he stated to me that it is his intention to attend an upcoming League of Cities event, I think scheduled for next week.
Next Wednesday.
And you know that he would be paid for his mileage and hotel in accordance with our adopted policies and procedures for those types of events. And that would again be something that would be standard and otherwise applicable anyway.
Okay. Have my fellow councilors had a chance to review the contract from last week that was handed to us or emailed to us? Did anyone not get it? Does anyone have any questions for the town attorney on it?
I truly don't remember getting it at all, but my email has been kind of messed up. So.
The mayor forwarded a copy of a draft contract that had been put together by H2 Solutions. We are still going through the process of reviewing it and adding to it because there are certain provisions that are required in all town contracts by state law that need to be in there, such as reference to state public records law, the E-Verify provision, and some other standard provisions that we include in all contracts. That weren't in there that need to be incorporated. But again, the operative terms are $20,000 a month and 6 months term with a 15-day advance notice for termination without cause. So either party can terminate the contract with 15-day notice.
So are you comfortable with us moving forward with either approving or denying this contract?
Yeah, yes, you can direct me. It's not uncommon, and in fact, Item 8D is almost very similar, where you would direct us to negotiate and finalize the agreement with the consultant that the Selection Advisory Committee is recommending we enter into a contract with for disaster consultant services. So it would be the same situation. You'd direct staff to finalize that document and get it executed. We'd put it on next agenda, just as an FYI, and the mayor would then sign it, subject to my signature, obviously H2 Solutions signing it, and the town clerk.
So would that hinder in any way allowing Mr. Holly to perform duties starting today?
I'm sorry, and I appreciate that was the other provision that was discussed, is they would like it, the fancy Latin word is non pro tunc, but back to last Wednesday when they first came to the town. So they would be and have been providing services since last week.
Okay. Are there any questions for the town attorney?
I'm just going to try to clarify what you asked. So, John, you're saying that could they start work even before we ratified the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
So, any questions for the town attorney? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the contract for H2 Solutions LLC?
So moved.
I'll second.
As described.
Pardon me?
As described.
As described. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Discussion. Let's get some discussion. Sorry.
Just a little bit of discussion, because I would just say, and people know this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Because of our town charter, the town manager position is given an inordinate amount of authority because we have a part-time council. So the town manager, according to the town charter, is basically the CEO of the town and has tremendous authority to move forward. I think by hiring this interim group, who both candidates have tremendous resumes and decades of experience, to help us not only through this difficult time, I think they will also help us create a process to find a permanent town manager. And I can't stress how important that is for the future of this town, that we get that process right. Because once we find a town manager, contracts are signed, long-term contracts are signed, and we need to do this right. We need to get it right for the future of this community. And I think this particular team we're bringing on can really help us in that process. I would also say, for those who might be concerned about the additional cost, that a couple things. Number one, the relationship as we go through this disaster with FEMA is extremely, extremely important. And to have seasoned leadership to liaison with FEMA and with the consultants to make sure that everything is documented properly, that we have a working relationship with FEMA so we get properly reimbursed for all of those costs. The costs of this particular contract will pale in comparison to the money we're talking about if we do it right with FEMA. I would also suggest this is a rather unique point in our history for Fort Myers Beach. We have a very unique and rare opportunity before the Florida legislature to get some additional help this coming session. The two gentlemen that we're contracting with have a history of working with the legislature. They've got a relationship with the legislature. They've worked well with our local representatives who are already bringing people to our island, other legislators to our island, to see the damage so we can prepare a package, a request package for the upcoming legislative session. This could be very significant for our community. And so I think to have the proper team in place, particularly for the next 6 months, to help us with the FEMA piece, with the recovery piece, and with the legislative piece, will be very consequential. And I've spent quite a bit of time with both of these gentlemen in discussions, and I feel very comfortable with their qualifications. And as we look at expectations, and if you forgive me, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to take another minute or two, because I think the future of this island is so important, and I think I want to communicate this to these two gentlemen who are coming in as the new town manager. First of all, like to thank our interim town manager, Mr. Steele, for his kind assistance this last week. It's smooth as can be, as everybody expected, so I appreciate your time, Mr. Steele, and all of your service to our community, both now and in the past, and quite frankly in the future as a member of our audit committee. Hopefully you'll come back to our audit committee. But I want to say to my colleagues, to the public, and to these two new potential candidates to be our town manager, I'm hearing some things around the island that give me great concern. I hear about this concept of it's going to take 5 years to rebuild our island. I hear that it's going to take 5 to 7 years. I hear it's going to take 5 to 10 years to rebuild our island. I think that's extremely dangerous messaging, and I don't think it's particularly clear what's actually going to happen in the near term. People right now are making decisions. We've got a lot of parents of school children here, but we've also got a lot of folks who are also homeowners. We've got a lot of folks who are older who are making decisions about whether they're going to rebuild or whether they're going to sell and move along with their life. When we send the message to them that this town's not going to be rebuilt for 5 years, we're going to lose a lot of our really good citizens who have contributed so much over the years. We're going to lose people who visit our island to other communities. This is a competitive market out there. And I think when we say, and of course we're going to have projects that are going to take years to complete. We always have projects, long-term projects. But I truly believe, that this town will be functional. And when I say functional, I mean a functional paradise once again within 1 year. There will be projects, of course, that'll take longer, and there'll be developments that'll take longer, as they always have. But we will be a functional paradise within 1 year. This season's going to be rough. We're not going to have a season this year like we normally did. But the next season, next year, 2023, we will be a functional paradise once again. For people who just have a sort of a laser view on their own situation, let me just tell you, as a member of this body, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree, we're hearing things that maybe aren't in the public domain that should be. The hotels, the largest employers on our island, are not sitting on their hands. The Pink Shell, the Best Western, the Diamond Head, Lani Kai, they're not sitting on their hands. They have huge teams of people that are triaging their properties. They're going to be ready for not this season, but the following season. They're going to be ready and open for business. The condos on this island are going to be ready and open for business. This season's going to be a challenge, but a year from now, we're going to be ready. And we're going to have a fully functional season. The Councilor Allers, our mayor, was on the beach the other day. We've got contracts with the state to clean up the beach. We've got local folks helping to clean up the beach. I assume we're going to have we're going to have hundreds of people scouring that beach as volunteers to clean up that beach. And that water's going to clean up, and in a year that beach is going to be more beautiful, and the water's going to be more beautiful than ever. We've got businesses opening on this beach. We've got the Bayfront Bistro. We've got Wahoo Willie's. We've got Yucatan. We've got food trucks, Cigar Hut, Tunic Skin, already open. We're not even 2 months into this thing yet. Publix is going to be open before the end of the year. CVS will be open soon. CVS has the largest second largest pharmacy business in the state of Florida on our little island during season. Of course they're going to be back, and they'll be back soon. You see other restaurants that are in the business, significant repairs are being done. Snug Harbor, I hear, will be open very soon. Nervous Nellie's at work. The Whale's rebuilding. So many of the other restaurants are building. Other businesses are figuring out how they open quickly. I've been in conversations with the new ownership of Times Square, which is consolidating. They're already thinking of magnificent plans for Times Square. I talked to a hotel owner on the south end who's going to sell. But here's the encouraging thing about what he told me. He's been on this beach for many, many years, has a house on the beach as well. I won't mention the hotel, but there's not a lot on the south end, so you can use your imagination. He said, Jim, I'm not selling to the highest bidder. I'm selling to a hotel chain that will represent what we represented and even more, be the best fit for our island, that will be a classy, fun, eclectic fit for our island, not just some cookie cutter design. Well, I want what's best for the island because that's my legacy. So this is what we're talking about. And let me just say, last but not least, is for the people who keep talking about 5 years, 7 years, I wish they'd knock it off, because Margaritaville will be open in 14 months. They'll have 250 some rooms. They'll have 4 brand new restaurants and a beautiful resort in 14 months. So I would just say to our Newtown team, and forgive me for my filibuster here, that this is something that we need to have it's morning, it will soon be morning again in Fort Myers Beach, as Ronald Reagan once said long ago. And I want to see an optimism out there. We're rightfully wearing these shirts about Fort Myers Beach resiliency. We're rightfully wearing these shirts about Fort Myers Beach strong. Let's send that message, because quite honestly, that's what's happening on the ground. So I want people to be encouraged. I want people to understand that this is not a 5-year plan. Yeah, we're going to have some unique situations that are going to be long-term projects. We've got them now. So let's be encouraged, let's be positive, and let's ask these consultants who are coming in for 6 months to have that vision as well, and share in the hope that we're going to be up and running in a year or less. That's all I have to say. Sorry for my comments there.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there any other discussion?
I would just say, is that really related to the discussion of the agenda item? I was just the whole. I understand what you're saying, but I think that it's kind of like there's this undefined what does rebuilt mean, because you talked about Margaritaville coming online. That's been down for 18 years, and it wasn't because of the town. It wasn't because of the council. It was because the owners didn't have a market to sell it. So I think that it's fairly arbitrary what considers us to be up and running. We do know that some things take longer than others, and I know that talking to the people from Panama City Beach, they were saying that some things like residential comes back really quickly, and a lot of I know the businesses here that are short-term rentals, they're looking at in a matter of months being rebuilt. So some things will be rebuilt quickly. The entire island, I'm not sure. That is largely up to property owners and not
Councilor Veach,
staff.
this was just my perspective. My perspective is we can be a functional paradise in 1 year. That's what I'm suggesting. That's all I'm suggesting. And I'm suggesting from a messaging standpoint that we emphasize that piece of the puzzle as much more than we have been, and as much as we can going forward. That was my only point. And the reason why I brought it up here is that we're hiring 2 people that will really have a huge impact on the next 6 months, and quite frankly, as we select a new town manager, on the next 5 to 10 years for this island. So I think it's important to say it at this point.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. King, anything to add? Councilor Woodson?
I just want to piggyback on what Councilman Aderholt has said. I too agree that the 5-year plan was thrown out there by previous council and really has nothing to do with the direction that we're taking with this council. We have talked a lot about the permitting process. We're going to continue to talk about that. We've talked a lot about getting planners in and making open workshops so that people can have their input. I would really like to know where we are with that, with our town staff, just what's being done. It's been brought up about 3 different times, and I've yet to see any announcement of when that's going to happen. So I really want to push hard on that in conjunction with what the vision is going to be for the town going forward.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to bring it back to what we were discussing. I just want to take a minute to thank Mr. Steele for stepping up over the last week and helping us get through what were a couple of tough decisions that I know you had to make that were not easy, but I supported you in those decisions, and I think you made the right ones. Hopefully you'll be able to get back out and be golfing here soon next Sunday. All right, well, I wish you the best, and again, thank you for helping out the community and stepping up the way that you did. If there's no other comments, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries 5 to 0. Next, we're going to talk about former manager or Hernstedt's contract.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Actually, John, before we move on, I'm sorry, would now be the appropriate time to have Mr. Holly switch places or sit in with Mr. Steele, if he'd like?
We're next to him. Step up.
You're not getting off that easy, Mr. Steele. Sorry, John.
So as we have previously discussed, the prior town manager tendered his resignation effective April 20th, 2023. We looked at and evaluated the existing employment contract between the town and Mr. Hernstadt, and as we set forth in the memo that previously was distributed to you all, at this point in time, the town council does have the authority under the employment agreement to accelerate the termination date. However, again, under the contract at that point in time, Mr. Hernstadt would have the option to either request payment of compensation through the termination, not the termination, the resignation date of April 20th, or on the alternative, up to 20 weeks or the maximum allowed by Florida law. The differential between those is approximately a week and a half, and therefore that would be what you potentially would be paying Mr. Hernstadt in addition if you were to accelerate his termination and keep that April 20th, 2023 date, which is the election that he's made. The biggest difference between the acceleration and his resignation letter as set forth in the memo is that as of the date of whatever you accelerate the termination to, he would no longer be a town employee and therefore not entitled to any additional benefits or accrued leave. As set forth in the memo, I did receive a communication from Mr. Hernstadt indicating that if it is the intent of the town council to accelerate the termination date, that he would respectfully request that that be through the end of this calendar year, which would allow him to maintain his health benefits through December 31st and also provide access to Mr. Hawley and his partner, access to him during that time frame to deal with any transition issues and other things which, in my conversations with Mr. Hawley, he does want to pursue with Mr. Hernstadt.
Mr. Hawley, do you want to opine on that? Is that something that you feel would be resourceful for you or not?
All I indicated to the town attorney was that I intended to reach out to the former manager out of courtesy, which I've done wherever I've done interim work. I don't know that keeping him on for another month is necessary, but that's your call. I just indicated that I wanted to follow up with him and kind of like any executive would do, you know, transitioning in behind somebody is just to find out, you know, what are the key issues that are on the burner that I need to be aware of if I haven't heard about them. But if that complicates things, you know, I can pass on that. It was just my intent to reach out this week to have a conversation. But in terms of the effective date, you know, the only issue that I see is the accrual of leave, and it will cost you a little more in terms of your buyout.
Can you move closer to the mic? It's a little hard to hear you.
Sure. And then, of course, the additional benefit to Roger in terms of his health care coverage. But it's your decision.
Okay.
But if we're kind of transitioning from today, I haven't thought through having Roger still, if the effective date of his resignation until the end of December, and then I'm functioning as the interim, so we kind of have two people on staff, so to speak.
Okay.
So other than his request on his behalf for health benefits, that's what he's asking for. And then I believe he would accrue leave through the end as well. So those are the two financial issues that you're facing.
Okay. John, if you would, in layman's terms, we just received this memorandum today, so, you know, we're reading through it for the first time. For those out there that have not had a chance to see it, can you basically break it down in its simplest form, the options that are out there for the council to choose from?
The manager had the right to exercise the right to tender his resignation, which he did. There is another section within that part of his employment agreement. It was the town council the right to accelerate the end date of that resignation. Going back to Mr. Hernstadt's resignation letter, he tendered his resignation effective April 20th, 2023, which is, give or take, about 21, 22 weeks from now. So if you accelerate his termination, or his resignation, I'm sorry, which is your right, then you would still have to pay him through that April 20th, 2023 date, but he no longer would be employed if you accelerate, and therefore not eligible for any benefits beyond the date of termination or early acceleration.
So essentially what I'm hearing, if I'm not mistaken, is we have to accept his resignation letter regardless?
You could seek to terminate him if you want, but you get to the same place for all practical intents, because under his termination without cause provision, you're obligated to pay him 20 weeks anyway. So do you want to run the risk of getting into a potential a dispute with Mr. Hernstadt as to whether or not you have the right to terminate him without cause when he's already tendered his resignation?
Do my fellow councilors understand what Mr. Herron just laid out for us? Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Herron?
I have a question on the last paragraph, and again, we just got this morning, so unfortunately, it should have come to us much earlier. But their last paragraph talks about requiring Mr. Hernstadt to execute a release in favor of the town in exchange for extending his benefits through the end of the year if we choose to do that. It says, unless the release is mutual, the town would still retain the ability, subject to the statute of limitation, generally 5 years, to pursue a clawback claim for payment of Mr. Hernstadt's salary. So would you like to explain that further in layman's terms, please?
Yeah, you always have the right, if you believe that any town employee, in this case the town manager, has engaged in some inappropriate conduct that was detrimental to the best interests of the town, and generally you look to what language is found in state law as well as the employment agreement, and we've provided that language to you all, which is misfeasance, malfeasance, and or nonfeasance the performance of his duties. You would always have the ability, and we just wanted to make it clear that you would have that authority to pursue any such claims, subject to it being within the statute of limitations, which puts a deadline on bringing such causes of action against anyone, against Mr. Hernstadt, or for that matter any other employee that would fall within these provisions or this language.
So if we chose to accelerate his agreement effective today, then there is no mutual binding agreement, or there is a mutual binding agreement, or do we?
There would be, if you're asking in the context of the release, no. Mr. Hernstadt made it fairly clear toward the end of last Monday's meeting that he did not believe a severance agreement or anything else was needed, that he would abide by the terms of his contract. I had that conversation, so I do not anticipate Mr. Hernstadt entering into a severance agreement, which was part of the discussion a week ago. So that is the language that we provided to you, is take his resignation as it's been submitted or accelerate it. That's what's provided for under his contract. Nothing more, nothing less.
So I take it, though, if we could negotiate with Roger for something in between.
Yeah, Mr. Hernstadt has asked that if the town council is inclined to accelerate the effective date of his resignation, not the effective date, the date of his resignation, again, under the terms of his contract, you still have to pay him out his compensation through that April 20th, 2023 date. That's fixed. He elected that as his remedy or his option, and that's what governs the acceleration. What I'm saying to you is that whatever it is that you say, Mr. Town Manager, we're going to accelerate it through today and not beyond today's date, then you would owe him nothing more than the compensation and whatever accrued benefits that he had through today's date.
Now, I would also point out the letter here says his last day of employment December 31st, 2023. That's like 14 months out.
That's a typo. That meant to be 2022.
Okay.
That is his request.
Mr. Mayor? Quick question. Mr. Attorney, statutorily there's a limit on what the city can provide in terms of severance, and my only question is there has to be a sync up. In other words, whatever date they pick.
No.
I think
not, the severance, not paying him, so we're clear, there is a statute that places a limit. It's 20 weeks. Unless you seek to try and terminate him without cause and potentially get into a future dispute, you're bound by the resignation provision of his contract, which says that you pay him his compensation, not severance, through the date that he said in his letter, I'm willing to work through. And there's a distinction in the terms of the contract and in the eyes of the law between compensation and severance. I'm sorry?
Explain that distinction.
Yes, severance is the limitation on the amount of money that he would be entitled to his 20 weeks of pay. His compensation and his resignation is through the date of the effective date of his resignation, which in his letter is April 20th, 2023. The delta or difference between the two is approximately a week and a half to two at the most, because we're almost at the end of November already. If you want to terminate him without cause, you can do so, and we'll see where that leads us.
Well, in the issue of moving this along, I believe since it was added, as the town manager Holly has stated, that the 20 weeks versus the extra weeks, I would be in support of accepting Mr. Hernstedt's resignation effective immediately, paying him as to his contract, but not extending any future benefits or pay through the end of the year. That's what I would be in favor of. So just to try to move this along a little bit.
I would just say that if your goal is to keep things keep this redevelopment on track, then I think that the idea of having Roger available to be asked questions by the new town manager to try to capture whatever institutional knowledge is out there would be more towards that goal than having an abrupt termination and not having communication between the interim town manager and the previous town manager. I think that having it go for another month with Roger, I think would help the town towards that goal of expediting redevelopment by not just throwing away institutional knowledge, which we're losing now anyway with some resignations.
And I appreciate your comments. I will tell my fellow councilors that working with the staff that has been around here for the last week and dealing and talking with Mr. Ward, representatives from the state, Mr. Holly, Mr. Wilkins, I feel very confident that we have the institutional knowledge here to, if they don't know it, they will be able to get the answer very, very quickly. And if we are going to start the rebuild process, it starts today. It starts with a decision. I certainly wish Mr. Hernstedt and his lovely wife the best in their next endeavor, but I feel today is the day that we move forward with the new manager, with the new council, with our staff, with our community, and dig in and get to work.
I just point out that this is my understanding. This is not to keep Roger in charge until December. It's to have him available for the interim town manager to ask questions.
I believe the interim town manager has said he will reach out and seek questions if he has questions or touch base, but I think at the expense of continuing benefits, I just think it's time that we move on.
You making that as a motion, or are you seeking a motion along those lines?
If there is a motion, yes, I'm technically not supposed to make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. King, you would have to make the motion. I did not make a motion.
Seeking clarity on.
You would like to make a motion based on that, you certainly can.
I don't remember exactly how you put it, but I'll just say that I would like to see us accept the resignation and termination effective immediately. Is that how you want it, or?
I believe, do we have to add, John, any verbiage to that based on what Mr. King just put out there?
No, sir. So the technical, the appropriate verbiage is we accepting the town manager's resignation and accelerating his resignation to be in effect as of today.
Go ahead and state that, John, so it's on the record. Oh, we got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second with a question.
We got a motion and a second for discussion. Any discussion? Councilor Adderholt, do you have anything to add? All right, Councilor Woodson.
My question falls with the release. I understand there was a release if we granted him till the end of this month. Where does the release fall into play if it's terminated as of today?
None. There
No
wouldn't be a
release.
release.
There's no release at all on either side.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I too feel that.
I am suggesting that if it is the inclination of the town.
John, could you pull that mic just a little bit closer?
What I am suggesting is that if it is the inclination of the town council to accommodate Mr. Hernstadt's request to make his termination date effective December 31st, is that we would request a release in exchange for that extension. It's not provided for in the employment agreement.
So were we able to ask for a release in just the acceleration?
We can ask. He could refuse, and therefore we would the terms of the presumptive motion, which is to December 31st, would not apply. We'd be back to the current motion on the table, which is effective today.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing else? Councilor Veach?
That was just clarification from Karen. So with your HR background, do you think that release is important? Is that something that...
If you had a severance agreement, normally there is a release in it. It doesn't sound like we're moving towards an actual severance agreement. The benefit of not having a release is that the town has the ability to move forward if in the future we find things that have not been handled appropriately. But I also feel that if there's a mutual release, in some ways it protects the town from having Mr. Hernstadt come back to us for whatever reason, which I don't think there could be a reason, but it's mutually binding at that point. But it does leave us open.
And that is, Councilwoman Woodson's summarization is right on point. If it's a mutual release, neither party can pursue any future claims against each other.
Vice Mayor Ederholt?
Are you comfortable with the motion then, Councilor Woodson, or do you wish to amend the motion?
No, I'm comfortable with the motion.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
To clarify what happened last week, because I've gotten questions on it, but from day one when I started campaigning, I was for changing town managers. I voted 4-1 last week to accept his resignation. My other votes were just because I thought the process we were going through was cumbersome and not necessary, and that's where I am on that currently, and that's why I made the motion today.
So just for clarification, so that everybody out there that may not be staying along, the motion on the table is to accept Mr. Hernstadt's resignation effective immediately, which entitles him to compensation through the April 20th, 2023 date. Is that correct?
That's correct, and nothing more other than any benefits that have accrued through today's date.
Okay. That being said, go ahead.
And I just asked her a question, really wasn't the comment I wanted to make. It's just that I think we all agree but we want to see this redevelopment go as cleanly and as expeditiously as possible. And I think to that goal, we need to make sure the actions we take are conducive to that goal, or else we're just fooling ourselves. I think that just eliminating a chance for a smoother transition is going to slow things down. And I think that not allowing the interim town manager to have open communication and availability of the exiting town manager for another month, I think we'll just lose institutional knowledge, and it will slow down the process of recovery.
Thank you for those comments. And as I said before, I feel very confident in the skill set of our new interim town manager, Mr. Ward, who was assigned to us from the state to assist, who's been boots on the ground since the beginning. He knows the ins and outs. He's had several conversations with Mr. Hernstadt. I'm confident that he knows where we're at, where we're going, and I believe in our staff. Our staff has been working very hard. I think they understand what's going on, and between the two work of those gentlemen, I think that we'll be able to move forward. That being said, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Councilor Veach dissent. The next item is the 2023 meeting schedule. Madam Clerk, can you just briefly read? I don't have it in front of me. Can you read off what the dates are?
Oh.
Let me wake my computer up. Hang on.
Didn't mean to put you on a spot. I just figured it'd be easier. I know how Vice Mayor Adderholt is with his calendar here. He's very diligent in making sure we have everything correct.
Yep. So through the remainder of 2022, we have today's meeting. There will be a management and planning session next Monday, November 28th. Monday, December 5th, a regular town council meeting. Monday, December 12th is a management and planning session. Then starting in January, we go the first and third Monday at 9 a.m. with the first Thursday following the first Monday meeting as the management and planning session. There is a couple days in February. The 20th meeting gets moved to Tuesday because of the holiday. And also in June, the 19th meeting gets moved to Tuesday because of the holiday. There are no meetings scheduled for September at this time because of the Department of Revenue regulations for millage and budget. Those will get set later. That's the calendar.
Okay, this will be available on the town's website for anyone that wants to go get this information, correct?
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'll seek a motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule as described by Madam Clerk.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just say I went through the list as it was sent to us the other day, and I don't have a problem. The only problem I have is I will not be here next Monday.
Okay. Any other discussion? We got a motion. We got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is the local planning agency appointment. Madam Clerk, can you please tell us the candidates that have put their names in? We have them, but for anyone that doesn't know.
Yep. As of the agenda cutoff date, which was last week, we had received 2 applications, one from Patrick Romko and one from James Bowen. In the meantime, over this weekend, I did receive one from the gentleman that was here.
Jesse Fields?
Yep, Mr. Field. That did not make it into the packet in time.
So what is the normal process? Do you hand us out something that we fill out and then hand it back to you and you tally the...
Yep. I have some ballots here.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, while she's handing the ballots out, can I just try to clarify something? So, in listening to the attorney in terms of our agreement, seemed to indicate that it was going to need to come back. In trying to listen to the agenda and the schedule you just had, next week's meeting's more of a planning meeting. It would be my hope that the attorney and I could reach an understanding today, and that your motion on our agreement would be that you be allowed to execute it subject to the attorney's review today.
For clarification purposes, would be brought back and placed on the agenda just as an FYI. Here it is on a consent agenda. It would get approved. It would relate back to the effective date, which is, as already instructed, the 15th of November. It would be just an acknowledgement of the existence of the agreement based upon the direction and vote that took place earlier today. Once we come to an agreement on the form and content of the agreement with H2 Solutions, all the parties can execute it, and it will be binding on the parties.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
All right. Madam Clerk is tallying the votes. We'll move on. We'll table this, see if that's okay with fellow council members, and bring up number D on the administrative agenda, and then we will go back to the local planning agency. The next item is RFP 23-01-AD, Disaster Recovery Consultant Services. I'll start with this. I had a very lengthy conversation with Director Guthrie from FDEM yesterday. I believe there was 13 or 14 companies that applied to this RFP. There was a selection committee that was put out that has brought forward Hagerty to our attention. It would be my request to the council to table this until our meeting on Monday, where we have an opportunity. This is a big decision that we're going to be married to for a very long time. I personally have not seen those other contracts. I would like to give the new interim manager and Mr. Ward time to vet those and bring back their recommendations to us at the MMP meeting on Monday. I was assured by the director that Tidal Basin, who is here doing this job now, would be continued on through a state contract, so they will pick up that services. He did reiterate to me that this is a very big decision. It's something that we should not rush. Being that we are a new council and we have a new interim manager, that it's something that we very much take a look at to make sure that we're getting everything through mitigation, recovery strategies, and that moving forward, that we have exactly who we want. Based on their recommendations, based on our work, I personally would like to look over these other contracts from these other vendors to figure out if Hagerty, and they may very well be the best and the ones that we should go with, but I think it would be in the best interest to table this for a discussion at our next meeting to pick who we want.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
And I would just say
the
the
second discussion?
Yeah, the next meeting is going to be an M&P meeting, so there won't be any ability to vote on it.
That is
Just
correct.
for discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
Other discussion?
Just point of clarification, what you're being asked to do is just approve the ranking. So it was authorization to negotiate, but I agree 100% with the mayor in terms of, I haven't had a chance to look at the bids, but the staff report was just approve the ranking to begin negotiations with who they're suggesting is the #1 firm. So not approving a contract. But I totally agree, a little more time, it's not an emergency, to kind of, for all of us to get up to speed would be helpful.
Mr. Mayor, I'll revise my motion for purposes of clarity. I motion to table until our next formal meeting on December 5th at 9 a.m.
An amended motion. Do you amend your second?
Second.
We have an amended motion and an amended second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. We'll go back to the local planning agency appointment. Madam Clerk, have you had time to do
Yes,
the
I have.
tabulation?
With 3 votes for James Bowen, he would be your next LPA member. I also received 1 vote for Jesse Field and 1 vote for Patrick Romko.
All right, congratulations, and you've got your work cut out for you. On to the next item, we have E, permitting fees, a discussion regarding the waiving of the permit fees. Again, I'll start this because I thought it was important to bring it back for us to discuss. We did waive the fees, but I feel it's important that we nail down exactly what that means because it's very, very broad. So with that, I'll open it up for any discussion. If you have any input, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll start with you.
Well, if I remember the motion and second, and I think it passed 4-1 last week. The desire was to be in concert with the Fort Myers Beach Fire District with respect to their waiving of permit fees. I believe that was the goal, and I think we decided to discuss. I think so the challenge today is to discuss what's covered under that. Again, as much as we can, I know we're different animals, but I think we could, much as we can be consistent with the fire district, I think it would be helpful. I know Councilor Veach raised some fiscal impact questions. So the scope of that, I think, is what, Mr. Mayor, you're trying to grapple with today, which is a very fair question. And I think we would probably need some help from staff to get a better sense of scope and fiscal impact, and particularly as it relates to the fire district, which was the intent of the motion previously.
Yeah, I can tell you, in speaking with Chief Martin to try to get a little bit of an understanding of what they were, it was more along the lines, if I interpreted what he was telling me correctly, of approved permits through that 90-day. And the reason was that on the 90th day, they don't want to have 250 permits just get tossed in, knowing that they're not probably ready to be turned in. So it was either an approved permit or an accepted permit. The last thing I think we want to do is have 2,000 permits come in on that 90th day and everyone expecting that they're going to have their permit fees waived. I think we want to do what we intended to do and give some relief, but I think we also should have some responsibility on those turning in their permits, that they're doing their due diligence, that they're getting the permits submitted, a complete package, and not just putting stuff in to try to beat the dollar clock, if you will. So that was my concern about bringing it back to have this discussion, is to maybe give a formal description so that the residents know what we mean when we say permit fees. It's not just an open door policy. So that was more of the direction that I was thinking to seek from the council here today.
And I would just kind of have a question on that, is what permit fees? If someone is applying for a variance, are those fees waived? If someone is putting in a pool that didn't have a pool, are those fees waived? Or is this specifically permit fees for rebuilding and repairing damage to the hurricane?
Good question. I mean, that's what the discussion is here for. I was more along the lines of an issued permit. So if you were issued a permit, so you still are going through the variance, but you haven't received your permit, that you would be eligible, or that you would be in the free permit fee.
But any permit for anything?
It's an issued permit. I'm open for discussion. If anyone else has any other better ideas, I just think it's very important that we don't just leave it open-ended, because it could be a lot of work and a lot of nightmare for our permitting staff.
I guess I look at that, I think the reason we were talking about doing this was as a benefit to our residents. And if you keep it as looking as a benefit to the residents because of Ian, I mean, these people would not, more than likely, or at least 75% of the people filing for permits would not be doing it if not for the devastation of Ian. So I would rather see it that it is strictly for the cleanup and rebuild of the destruction after Ian, and not something that was already in motion, in the planning, that type of thing.
I think that's an excellent point, and I would agree with that, and I would agree with what you're trying to do as well, Mr. Mayor.
So just so that I'm understanding what you said, Councilor Woodson, you're essentially saying if there was a pre-existing permit before September 28th, that those would not be eligible for the permit fees, but
Correct.
anything applied for after would then be eligible within that 90 days.
Correct.
And I
Yes.
think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Counselor, but I think you were, and obviously the vast majority of them will be, but there may be permits that are not Ian related, and those would then not be covered. Is that fair? Is that what you're trying to accomplish as well?
Yes, I mean, I think it's strictly for the rebuild after Ian that we would give this benefit to.
I agree with that.
I would also request that we maybe avoid paying for some of the more expensive things like if someone comes in for variance, that can add up in a hurry. I think it'd be good to encourage people to, in an effort to streamline permits, to not ask for variances if they really don't need them.
Well, and I certainly do not want to speak for Chief Martin, but I believe that their intent was to help those that are able and ready to be rebuilt quickly, whether it's coming out of the ground, whether it's doing whatever they have to do to rebuild. But the intent, in my opinion, again, in speaking with him, and I certainly do not want to speak for him, but was to get the people that are ready to get permitted and are ready to get started, that gives them the relief, not someone that maybe be planning a pool a year from now, if that's kind of answering what your question.
Yeah, or any kind of variance. So I'm really worried about the expense of this, and the more we can do to bracket it to focus it on the real intent and not leave it overly broad that people can play it, then the more we can constrain this, which could be a huge expenditure.
Do you have any suggestions?
Well, the idea of saying it's only for repairs, I think that we should say that it's for for permitting within whatever the building codes are. So it means that if someone wants a variance and they want to go through that process, that they choose to do that on their own dime, because that also slows down the works for everybody. And I would really like to, I would even think that we could put a cap on there and say, just so it isn't open-ended. So we say we'll have X number of dollars available for this, and then after that we have to come through and approve more. Because an open-ended thing that costs millions would be problematical with our recovery in the long term.
I've given a lot of thought to that and how we can keep it as clean as possible, if you will. So that's why I was trying to go with the issued permit. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that would certainly give us a known end date, which would be that 90th day. If the issue is if a permit is issued, and I don't want people to think that this is going to slow down permitting any more than we all know it kind of goes a little slower than we'd like, but I think that we have to have some sort of end, if you will, so that we're not going back past the 90 days to try to decide as a council, well, which one, should they have gotten it, shouldn't they have got it? I just think that there's a way that we can do this to keep it clean, very transparent, very easy for those that are ready to get building. They get their permit in, they get their permit issued, they are not going to pay a fee.
And, a couple of points to that, and I understand where you're coming from, Mayor, but a couple of points, and one is that, this is not our money, right? This is the taxpayers' money we're talking about. And so the more we bracket it to say that, it's just going to be this group, the people that are ready and have applied for permits, that are probably the ones that didn't get the most damage, right? Those are the houses that are probably easier to repair than if someone's trying to do a whole new design on a house, they're not going to be ready in 90 days. The other thing is, so it's a little discriminatory. You're basically asking some taxpayers to pay for other taxpayers' bills when they won't have that same opportunity. Another thing is I had another point and I forgot what it was. That if you have it on approval, then there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be upset because if their permit takes longer to approve than they expected, then they feel they're going to be left out.
And I certainly have sympathy for that, and I completely understand it. This is unfortunately one of those items that are not going to be a perfect solution for everyone, much like the 50-50 rule is not going to be a perfect solution for everyone. It's going to hurt some more than others. I fully understand that, but I believe we have to make a firm decision on the permitting fees so that we know where the end date is, we know exactly what we're going to deal with, we can calculate what that meant to us after we know how many permits have gotten turned in. I just feel that it's an important thing to do as opposed to taxing our staff. Should everybody want to just throw in a permit that is nowhere near ready to be even looked at just for the sake of trying to save some money? So I'm just trying to get some clarification to get a hard deadline so people know exactly what they need to do. There's several people out there that are ready to start. They've turned it, they've talked to their contractors, they've gotten their itemized list ready, they're submitting it to the town for the town to approve it and move forward and issue those permits. So it's the ones that are close to that 50-50 that really aren't sure, I think, that could potentially be affected by this more than others. But I think it's a good policy decision for this council to make a decision as to what exactly they can expect for the permits.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with what you're trying to accomplish here. To make this even a little bit more challenging, I just have, since we're doing a clarifying exercise here, which I think is important, I'm a little confused because I think it was at the first or the second town meeting that we actually had after the storm. I think either you or myself, I can't remember who, one of us asked the former town manager, are we charging for permits? And they said no. And then we had a later discussion as to whether we should charge or whether we were charging or not, and all of a sudden we were charging. I was wondering if, I don't want to put Jim Steele on the spot, or maybe John Heron, who's I don't think here, was there a point where do you remember when the town manager said we weren't charging?
Yeah, I believe his comments were that we were going to refrain from charging for permits until council had a time to make decision as to what we were going to do with the permits.
Do you think we started to charge at that point then when that vote occurred?
I don't know when they started getting charged, but I do understand what you're saying. But this is, I think, where we've come to the point where we can make that decision, make it very clear, and be done with this and move forward.
I agree with what you're doing, and if you would restate what you're trying to accomplish, I'll try to put it in the form of a motion so we can keep moving here with Councilor Woodson's addendum.
Yeah, just to, I think, recap, if I heard everybody correctly, Councilor Woodson's clarification was anything post September 28th that came in as far as permits, nothing that was pre-existing, and that you have to have the permit issued to you before the end of the 90 days to be in the free permit fee realm, if you will.
Mr. Town Attorney, did you get that? Because I'm going to make a motion to that effect.
I believe that based upon the discussion that's taken place, that there should be a clarifying motion, so it's a matter of record as to exactly what you all want. My recollection, based upon, unless it's different, then, if it is different than Mr. King's motion at the last meeting, which was up to 90 days to coincide with the start date that the fire district used. The discussion and the reason why I understand and the discussion that's taken place today is the scope. If the scope is different, then you should vote on it.
Right. And what the mayor just said, and you may have missed it, I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to do a motion consistent with what he just said to help clarify that scope. Do you need him to restate that?
For who made the motion?
I was going to make the motion.
Yes, then it's whatever.
But I'm going to have the mayor restate exactly what his intent was, and then I will put it in the form of a motion. I want to make sure.
It's always best practices for once the motion is made and seconded and before the vote takes place is for the chair to say we're voting on the following motion.
I understand, but you had stepped out. I just want to make sure you heard what he
Yeah.
said, so it's consistent with
And
what we need to accomplish.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. You
There's
stepped out. I just want to
another
make sure you
meeting
hear
to
it,
take-
so we're good. Yep.
Yes, we're good.
So after discussion, John, the intent was to clarify that any permit submitted after September 28th, nothing pre-existing, would not fall within the free permit or the waived permit fees in the 90 days, and that the permit has to be issued within that 90 days to be eligible for the waived fees.
I have one more question on that, though. So if the permit has to be issued within the 90 days, and we have such a backlog currently, or we did, of permits, how can we ensure, and I'm looking at our town manager here, how do we ensure that we have enough staff, we have enough people that can actually process these permits that come in that are ready to go, and there's no delay to take more than 90 days? I mean, is that going to take additional staff to do that permitting process?
Well, I can imagine that everyone would try to come in to get to the deadline, and then you're going to have the issue of staff having to try to issue up thousands and thousands of permits to avoid being criticized for not getting them issued on time. So I'm trying to think through how to, if the application's in, now I don't know all the nuances that you got into between variance request and some of the other categories, but if they're strictly for a building permit to repair or replace a home and they're applied, what is the downside of allowing the issuance process to carry on past the 90 days, so that we don't put staff under burden that they have to have issued every permit before the deadline? It seems more that they'd have to be applied for and then you cut off versus issued. So maybe I don't understand it all.
I think I understand what you're saying. So would it make more sense then to say if permits were received within the 90 days, but for any reason they had to go back to the applicant to have corrections, that then they would no longer be available for the, would that help alleviate some of the staff issues? I'm just trying to be careful with having everybody just rush in, so they can still get their permit in, and if it gets issued after the 90 days, without having to go back for more stuff because they didn't have all their ducks in a row, for so to speak, would that be easier than just saying it has to be issued? The last thing I want to do is put more.
Yeah, I haven't even talked to the building officials, so they're the ones that are the experts on this, but it would seem that it would be more of a problem to put pressure on them to issue every permit that they're going to get versus processing them in the normal way. If they get in before the deadline, then we just work on processing them and they get the benefit. I don't know about the back and forth. I watched an excellent video that I was provided over the weekend where we had 3 of our building officials all answering these kind of questions. It was very well done on how it happened. They all did a very good job. But I'm more worried about telling people, telling the staff, getting people mad at our staff because they got their application in, but we couldn't process them. That we got 10,000 permit applications to get in before the deadline. No way in heck we're going to process them all, and we're going to have a bunch of mad residents that they didn't get the waiver. I'm trying to understand the downside of saying if you get in before the deadline, we'll process it. If it takes 2 more months, 6 more months. What's the downside of just once they're in, stamped in, they get the benefit, we'll get them approved as fast as we can. I'm trying to understand. I'd rather go that way, but I don't understand exactly the problem.
No, okay, I think that makes sense, and wise words. They were wise words. But I do believe that what you raise, Councilor Woodson, about anything after, nothing pre. Would that be sufficient, do you think, as far as any permits received after September 28th would be eligible for the fees, and then received by that 90-day deadline would be eligible for the fees. But is that kind of what you're going after? What would be?
I'm trying to go after what y'all are going after. So it seems right. Okay. But again, I have not talked to any of the staff about what I've had a quick overview like all of us this morning on some of these financials. I can tell that, we were operating in the red for a few years until just recently. And so you're obvious. I think there's going to be tons of building activity, and I think the revenues are going to be there ultimately. And we can probably absorb this 90-day period. That's without any conversation with our building staff. But it would seem better. I know there'll be a rush of people to apply, and that the applications probably won't be very well thought out because they just want to beat the deadline to get the fees waived. And there'll be a ton of back and forth with people that turned in permits that weren't really thought through. But I see that as a better scenario than we're not going to give you the benefit once that 90-day, and there's going to be thousands of people that are mad. So
okay. I think we understand. Does everybody understand what the town manager is saying?
Mr. Town Attorney, since this is kind of important, do you want to try to formulate that in the form of a motion, which then I will articulate, or at least?
Well, sure. Yeah, we're agreeing on all the particular points. Are we agreed on the modification we talked about? Because first we're talking about having to have the application approved by a date. Now we're talking having the application in. We know there's pitfalls to both of those, right? Either way, you're going to piss people off on that. We're also talking about, is this only Ian damage? Is it only straight permitting and not variances? Those kind of points I think are really important before you make your motion. Are we agreed on those points?
Yeah, I'll try to recap it for you, John, and then you could just either tell us yes or no. So I believe what you're asking, Councilor Veach, is that we stick strictly to permits, not variances or deviations within those permits, but straight permits that had come in after September 28th, and the deadline is the 90 days. I don't know what the 90th day is. To coincide with what the fire department has done. So when their date ends, our date ends. I don't have that date in front of me. Does that pretty much sum up, I think, what we've talked about?
And only for damage related to Hurricane Ian.
Pardon me?
Only for damage related to Hurricane Ian.
Only for damage related to Hurricane Ian.
I would say that's a motion. Is there a second?
Motion. The mayor was under the mindset that he can't make a motion, but I thought he could make a motion.
He can make a motion.
All right. So you're good. So I'll second the mayor's motion.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Apologize for making a rookie mistake in my enthusiasm, but what I heard from a lot of people was the need for this. I understand, Councilor Veach, your concern about revenue, but my concern and a lot of other folks' concern has been that these are revenue streams and they should not be. They should just be to cover the cost. We already have people on staff, so that's where I was coming from.
And I just point out that I think the basis of fees is that they have to cover the purpose with the fee. So it's not a revenue stream for the general fund of the town. The permitting fees pays for the permitting process and the staff. And if we have more permits coming in and we charge fees, we have more money to put on more staff. So, in some ways, and I understand what you're saying, everybody wants relief. We're getting an enormous amount of relief from the federal government, the state government. But for our little town, we're different. The fire department, they're about health and safety. Their motivation is to make sure places are safe, that no one's dragging their feet because of a permit fee to be safe. Our permits include zoning, and plumbing and electrical and roofing. They're much more complicated than what the fire department's going to do. Plus, we're covering a higher percentage of our properties. They're multi condos, commercial, and multi-family units, but there's a lot of single-family units that we would be covering. And no one has ever talked about how we're going to pay for this, and if it will inhibit us putting on more staff to help expedite the permitting process.
The things that we talked about last week in our joint M&P and LPA meeting was we asked staff and LPA to really look at this process, why it takes so long, why all the back and forth. I'm not sure when they're coming back to us with that. You know, part of the issue is too, if they don't change the process, and the process, as I understand it now, is very close to sometimes 4 to 6 months. You know, the whole intent of this, once again, is to help the people that were hurt by Ian. So I'm assuming that the motion that you made, Mayor, was that the permits need to be put in prior to that 90 days. They don't have to be issued before the 90 days.
That is correct.
And is there anything we can add to this to try to ensure that people don't put permits that they know are not ready, that are just going to bog down the system?
Hold on. If I may, procedurally, a motion and a second has been made, and you're currently in discussion. I think I would interpret Councilmember Veach's comments or discussion to potentially be in the way of a proposed amendment, as opposed to separate substantive issue. If I may respectfully suggest that we don't know, none of us know, how many permits are going to come in during this time period. I would suggest that you vote up or down the motion that's currently on the floor. If there's a need to amend it, or you can discuss that, and then, you know, the manager and staff, you know, will come back to you and say, hey, look, this is working exactly like you all desired, or, you know, there's still a backlog to the point of trying to get them issued within the 90 days that's been set forth. It's a point being, it's a fluid situation, and as additional information is obtained and we report back to you, you can modify the policy that you just that's currently under discussion, because until you know, there's a better handle on what the total number of permits are and where they fall within what's been discussed, it's hard to estimate whether or not everything is going to get processed within that 90-day time frame, as you all are discussing and potentially directing staff to do right now. There may be some, you know, last-minute ones that maybe need another week or so, and we can report back, and you all can say, hey, we'll give those 2 more weeks, but the queue has closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the previous question.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
See, I moved the previous question.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Bill Veach dissenting. Next item is final public comment. Madam Clerk, anyone care to speak? Please remember to just say your name for the record.
Are we on?
Yep.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Kara Stewart, for the record. I come to you today in relationship to your conversation on fees. I just have another thing to throw out to you. Under statute, there is a provision for private provider services. What that is an individual, a private entity, may hire a company and/or an individual that's called a private provider to provide plan review and permitting inspection services as an individual. In doing that, the town has an obligation to adjust their fee schedule to compensate for the services the town will not be providing. So I don't know that if this has been brought to anyone yet, but I'm working with some folks that are trying to be private providers to provide that service. And in doing so, looked at the fee schedule and brought up the question. So the fact that you're talking about fees, I would like to throw that out there to have you continue that conversation in that relationship. Your fee schedule combines building permit fee along with your additional the additional services, for instance, a drainage review, a zoning review, a flood review. So you have your building permit fee, which is supposed to be supporting your plan review fees and your inspection fees, and then you've got those additional fees. It's that we need to take a look at if we're going to pursue, well, you don't really have a choice, but in order to allow the public, if they so choose, to hire a private provider, which would take some of that burden off of the town. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else go to speak? Joe?
Is it working? Yep. Okay. Closer. A couple things. You
got to state your name, Joe.
Oh, apologize. Joe Orlandini. I do appreciate you giving some relief on the permit fees. I do plan to use that for a couple of my pro bono jobs that I plan on taking on. But I would like to pay for the jobs that are not pro bono during that time. I'm going to pay my permit fees, and hopefully it starts a trend so that we do pay money to the town to keep things supported. So I plan to do that. The other question I need to bring to the town council is that I have touched base with Chelsea in the, Public Works Department, and I think some of you may know I did look for the clock in Times Square. I looked through Times Square debris. I looked down Old San Carlos. I looked to the, what would be to the north of the pier. I looked in the canal in the back of Shipwreck and throughout that area. I looked at the debris that ended up over at Yucatan. I looked at the debris at the end of Old San Carlos. For several days, we and my manpower actually dug through the debris and searched and searched and searched. We could not find it. As we all know, it's missing. One of my partners, investors, decided that we would like to offer to pay for the new clock. I did get the information from Chelsea to be able to contact them, and we can pay to replace that clock for the town.
We're not allowed to respond, but that's, I think that deserves a round of applause.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Really. That's amazing.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else care to speak? Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Dave Ficelli. I do like Vice Mayor Altheralt's one-year plan theory, and I support it 100%. It's important that we get this beach up and running again, just for the benefit of the people that's lost everything. It gives them hope to see that there's going to be, a comeback. But I do want to stress that we need to clean our beaches immediately and get on that in full force with as much manpower as we can. The beaches are not only filthy, they're dangerous, and you can't bring tourists back without clean beaches. So I like that to be a forefront issue for our town. As for the permits, I personally live in a condominium. Being in a condominium with the devastation we've encountered, there's going to be a lot of design and constructability issues that have to be changed from where they were existing. This is not a 60-day process by any means. We're still waiting for FEMA engineers to come out to assess the property, let alone get our own engineering and design firm in and architects and what have you to be able to submit a proper permit. So anything you can do to help us along in that path would be greatly appreciated. If that's opening up town staff or the possibility to communicate a little easier, that would be great. It's my understanding that life safety issues go through the fire department. Everything else goes through the building department. I just want to stress that we can't waste time to get that one-year plan, a possibility. Excuse me, my notes here. That 90-day period, if I'm not mistaken, would end on January 17th. I thought was what was stated at the last meeting. Is that about correct? Oh, can't answer? Okay. Mr. Herron?
I can proceed out of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, if go ahead and finish up your comment, and then we'll touch on it afterwards.
Thank you. Basically, again, the type and scope of work for big multi-story, multi-family residential units is going to be a lot different than putting a single-family home back on its lot. So I just want town council to consider what those impacts are to hundreds of people that are involved in that situation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else care to speak? Hold on.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is George Gilbert. I was the magician at Times Square since 2008, and I just want to congratulate the mayor and thank you all for your service. And while you guys are handling important issues like the permitting and everything in the rebuild, I just wanted to mention that we need some events to keep the community alive, and I'd like to thank Chris Primo for letting us use his space this weekend to do some family-friendly entertainment. And I'd like to invite everybody here from 4 to 7. We're going to have kid-friendly entertainment, magic, music, just like we would have had in Times Square. And I'd like to invite you all as well. So, thank you.
Good. Chris? You want?
Yeah, hey everybody, Chris Primo. I'm hearing a couple of issues. Three of our restaurants are trying to get back online, and some of the things required is sanitation and restrooms for a food truck, and they're concerned about the amount of pressure that would be with the amount of people and the lack of facilities that are available, that what they would be able to provide wouldn't be enough, and we're looking for support on that end so that they're not held liable to try to create bathrooms for everybody that shows up down here. Secondly, there's a lot of people out there trying to do beach cleanup, organize there's a lot of different people doing it. I just want to put our name out there that we want to use our parking lot, Norm's Beach Parking, as a place where people can come and they can park their cars, get supplies. I just need support. I just need people to, we don't need to we need to unify in this direction and not, splinter off and everyone does their own little thing. And we're more than happy to help even at Times Square. We have another piece of property there that we think we could provide assets to people that want to show up and clean. But we need education on safety hazards. We need to know that what we're doing is the right way. And I don't know, I've reached out to a few people. I'm not getting the traction that I would like, but I'm going to put it out there that that's what we want to do. We want to get our beach clean. We think that's the engine that drives everything. People don't come here to look at everything else. They really want to come here for the beach, and the other stuff is just a sideshow. So anyway, thank you. Congratulations to you guys. Good luck. If I can help, let us know.
Thanks, Chris. I have that as one of my council items, so I'll touch on your questions at the end. Yes, sir.
My name is Neri Cohen. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for helping us to cleaning the area of the square. Thank you very much. But I would like to add one thing. I would like to make another meeting with all the peoples especially the business people around the square and outside of it. I know we clean it, and some of us pay for that in our own pocket, and some of us doesn't want to that. But I go there every day and work and try to fix what I fix, and I know it's clean to some satisfaction. But there's still a lot more to do there, because there's a hole there that right across the street where his building and the ice cream building, there's a huge hole that was electric or sewage and stuff, and there's a mattress we put on top of it. And if somebody fall, probably he will be a lawsuit, or the next door, or who knows it the right away. My point is, as a volunteers, which is I would like to do, is to make another meeting with all these vendors and the one in the beach side and stuff, and get them together, maybe ask them to clean it thoroughly, and maybe offer them as a hope, okay? To give them, when they clean it thoroughly, maybe gravel temporarily, leave the right of way so we can put sewage back and electric, and they can actually, instead of to park cars and everything, they can put vendors, so temporarily, for the time being, until you make decision what you with the Times Square or any other that, because they have no building there, they can operate it and have hope, like Pizza Timeout, Placa and everything, because everybody, I heard all kind of rumor, they want to sell 600 square feet and blah, 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 and you don't want to lose all these people. You want to keep them, all these people, instead of to sell it to another person and deal with more people, you would like them to stay there and be. So I would like you, if you can make another meeting effort to make with everybody, even the doggy place and Pizza Timeout and all of them, we're all going to meet, and maybe we can agree to something, clear out, so for safety. Like I was on Saturday, and kids go upstairs in my apartment, take pictures, kids go through the lot, and there's a rebar still sticking out. Mr. Brad doesn't want to clean, so we had to clean his property, but the blocks is staying there. So I know he has responsibility and stuff, and it's not the town. But if somebody fall, it is somewhere is the town responsibility, because you let to everybody to walk, and eventually in Christmas everybody's going to go to the beach. They don't care. You can't block everybody to go not to go to the beach. And like the Dairy Queen, he didn't even clean there, and it's a hazard. It's dangerous. He's supposed to clean himself. So if we give him some hope, maybe he will come and clean it in their own pocket and their own money, and it'll be perfect for everybody. And I'm willing to be, if you need, you can reach out to me. I want your help, because it's time, like you said, move on, and maybe we can be able to actually in Christmas to have some decoration, Christmas cake like it was in the New Year's, and he can be, the musician can be theirs, and activity can be, and we'll pay maintenance if we need to clean up, monthly fee or something, to have back the garbage and back all the.
You to wrap up, sir. You've had your 3 minutes. Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to speak? Yes, sir.
How's it going? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. James Cox. Just wanted to maybe put something out there as far as the permitting. Maybe think about this when you guys are looking at it. Potentially, could there be like the map, how they did the 50-50 rule, or these maps that were out there? Potentially, maybe look at those properties that were seriously damaged. Maybe giving those people the permits, like that they're going to have to put something new up, and if it's the same owner, that person would be able to rebuild at no cost. That's it.
Anyone else care to speak? Seeing no one else, we'll close public comment. Town manager's items.
Good afternoon. We had an incident occur prior to my being town manager. The previous town manager instituted a salary increase effective October 13th, 2022. And the new salary structure was that all employees that worked 40 hours received time and a half pay. Any hours that exceeded 40 were paid double time. The impact, the first pay period that this was in effect for was on October 27th. There was an additional $167,529 paid. For November 9th, an additional $155,168. And then the pay that's going to end on the November 23rd, estimating $126,000. So roughly about a $450,000 in additional pay was made. I had a meeting with all town staff on Friday at 10 a.m. and said this will no longer occur. We're going back to the regular pay schedule. The estimated cost, as I said, was of roughly $450,000 in extra pay. I just thought the town council should be made aware of that.
I have a question for you, Jim. Is any of that FEMA reimbursable?
I don't know.
I can tell you I asked that question and wasn't given a direct answer, but the answer was leading towards no, because it was not a policy that was in place before the hurricane happened.
Oh, I see.
And I want to thank Dan Allers. This past week, he has been amazing. He's been on point, he's been on focus, and he's done you guys a tremendous job. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Jim. Do you want to touch on either one of you want to touch on the year-end financial report? I know, Mr. Holly, you just got it, so.
Well, I think we all just got it this morning, so had a good conversation with Ms. Russ over the weekend. She's out on medical leave. She had a doctor's appointment this morning. Don't know when she'll be back. I mean, obviously, I can't go into a whole lot of detail explaining them right now. I'm still digesting them, and my suggestion is we come back and give you an opportunity to discuss that when Sherry gets back on the job. We can either do it at next week's meeting or the week after. Or I can take notes, good notes, if there are questions on what you've got in front of you.
No, that makes sense. As you said, we just received it today, so it might be best that we bring it back and have it for discussion.
I mean, in general, what her comments to me was obviously the financial condition of the city's top priority for all of us. She seems to think we're in good financial shape. We've obviously got big challenges ahead of us, but she wanted me to know that, you know, given the information that you've got in front of you, you know, we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from either of the town managers?
And I know it's difficult because, like I said, you guys are new to this whole thing. I know, Jim, you've been around this for a while, but I noticed under when they said the insurance coverage that we've received $3 million in insurance coverage so far. Does anybody know what that's for?
I do not. I don't know.
I think there was one payment, and it was like 800 and some thousand for the water department, and about $1.9 million for the stormwater department that came from FEMA.
Oh, okay.
Anything else?
So one of the questions that I had for Ms. Russ was the status of the insurance claim. My understanding is you're with the League of Cities. I hope to meet with the insurance folks at the League at the conference next week. My experience in the past in dealing with Hurricane Michael was that the youth adjuster, someone to advocate for your claim. The League of Cities is a great program, but this is very technical in nature. You know, your policies and your level of insurance, how recently you had property appraised in terms of values. There's a lot of work to be done on the claim. Would certainly recommend that we don't settle any claims anytime soon. Ms. Russ indicated that part of this packet that you tabled before on the company that would represent you on some of the issues, storm-related issues going forward, has a section on insurance adjustment and services there. That's about all I know. We may have to come back and suggest that we do a quick RFP or RFQ for an independent adjuster, depending on where we're at. But it's a very important issue, your status of your insurance. So that's about as much as I know over the weekend.
Thank you. Town manager or town attorney items.
The only thing that I have to report is based upon an email that I just received earlier today from our League of Cities outside counsel. As you are aware, we do have outside coverage on a number of different matters. One of the pending matters is a personal injury claim that has been brought by a gentleman by the name of Donald Crapo on behalf of his wife, who was injured in an accident allegedly on a town sidewalk, although that's a central dispute. Just want to let you know that there's a mediation on that matter scheduled for tomorrow. Just received notice. You know, I do anticipate that the matter will be settled probably during the course of the mediation. If you wish, I can, you know, be there to as a town representative, although not much input because of the nature of the claim, and report back to you on what happens at tomorrow's mediation. Other than that, nothing.
You know, I got to tell you, John, when you walk around and you see how many unsafe conditions are on this island, it's surprising we don't get a lot more reports of injuries.
Well, this particular claim predates. I mean, it's been going through the judicial system for several years. In fact, the claim arose as a result of an accident that Ms. Crapo alleges took place when the Estero widening was taking place. And in fact, on behalf of the town, the League of Cities has asserted that it's not our project. We had no control over it, and therefore there's no liability to the town. But notwithstanding having provided that information to the claimant, they've continued to continue to include the town in the claim against us, the contractor, and Lee County. So the League of Cities has, under our policy, a duty to defend us, and they are doing that.
You have anything else, John? Council member items and reports. Do we have the list of all of the outside committee designations, Madam Clerk, that you want to just go one by one, and we'll get them out of the way as best we can?
Okay, so the outside committees, the first one is Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, the Policy Committee. I believe our Environmental Services currently sits on that board with us. And does Councilman Veach?
Yeah, that's one of mine.
Yep, that's one of his. So we just...
Would you like to continue serving in that role, Councilor?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
One down.
The second one is the Coastal Advisory Committee. I believe it's the same. Do you sit on that one also? Do you want me to read its description?
Sure, because I don't remember attending a meeting if I'm on that committee, if I'm the liaison.
This is a Lee County government committee that advises the Board of County Commissioners, staff, and various related advisory boards when proceeding with a project affecting beach and shoreline preservation regarding the proper methods of helping to conserve the beaches of Lee County. I believe our Environmental Services currently sits in on that board.
And I know some committees, like the Coastal and Heartland, they require an elected official to be in certain boards. So I'm not sure if this coastal one is the same or whether it's just something that Chad's been doing.
You said currently Chad is on that?
I believe, yes, he is. He's shaking his head yes at me.
Chad, is that something you would like to continue to do? Okay, we got that one.
Chad, yep. Okay. The next one is the Fort Myers Beach Elementary School Youth Council. I don't know what's going on with that right at the moment.
Who is currently?
Mayor Murphy was the representative.
As I understand it, that's traditionally a role held by the mayor.
I'll take it.
Okay. Horizon Council. It is currently Mayor Allers.
If there's no one else that wants it, I'll continue to do it. I think that's a very informative group, especially in the times that we're in. But if someone else would like it, I certainly think it's a good opportunity.
What is the Horizon Council?
Yep. Lee County Economic Development Office Committee that advises the Board of County Commissioners on economic development issues. Period.
I would like to be on that.
Okay, I will. I think I've been on it for the last 2 years. It's essentially anything that drives the economy in Lee County is what they advise the BOCC on. So it's very informative. It talks a lot about future growth and things like that. So
yeah, I'd be interested in that.
Okay. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO. Do you want to read its description also?
Who was previously on that one?
Well, no, she went off of that one.
That was Mayor Murphy. Mayor Murphy was on that.
Right,
I was the alternate. If I could, Mr. Mayor, because I know this is new for our councilors, I would suggest that particular organization has a very long-term look at our various transportation projects in Lee County, and I would suggest, for continuity purposes, one of the new councilors who has the potential for an 8-year term of service, consider that. I know Karen just took the Horizon Council, so I would, John, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I think you'd find it very interesting, and I think it would really be good from a long-term standpoint to have somebody that has the potential to be here for 8 years to take a look at that.
I'd be happy to do that.
That's the TDC.
And I'd be happy to continue to be an alternate.
Yeah, that's a very important one that attendance is very, very crucial on that.
Ready? Okay. The Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council, a self-governed committee that provides regional leadership addressing long-term challenges and opportunities facing Southwest Florida. Currently, we don't have any representation. The town receives reports upon request.
Are they still meeting?
It says they typically meet the third Friday of the month, but I don't think they have been meeting.
Yeah. It's my understanding from the conversation a couple of years ago from the vice mayor and the mayor at the time that committee has become much less active than it has been in the past. So unless somebody wants that could probably be handled by staff, but I would defer to my colleagues on that.
No, I agree. If that's something that staff can handle that one, especially if they're not meeting as often as they used to.
And then the last one on the list is the Tourist Development Council, the TDC.
And I would, as the current representative on the TDC, and it is one of the primary funding vehicles for Fort Myers Beach, particularly as it relates to beach renourishment. And my experience on that has been a good one, and they have a tremendous amount of resources. But given the sensitivity of the beach renourishment needs of the town of Fort Myers Beach, A, and B, because Fort Myers Beach and the island of Sanibel are the two largest donor communities to the TDC, we have an alternating voting spot. Currently, Sanibel, the mayor, the able mayor of Sanibel, is doing an excellent job of representing her community as the voting member. I am the non-voting member, but that will switch, I believe, this summer. And I think it's important, given the importance of that particular committee to the island and to the opportunity to build relationships with our friends in the county, and particularly as it relates to beach renourishment. I would encourage that I don't want to load his plate too full, but I think it would be important for the mayor to serve in that lead capacity on the TDC.
As long as there's no opposition, I'd be happy to. There you have it. Is that it, Madam Clerk, for outside committee?
That's it.
I would also, I'd also mention, probably didn't make your list, a couple. One is the Southwest Florida Resiliency Coalition. That's something I've been serving on for the last little while. And there was also the Estero Committee for Bay Management. I forget the exact acronym, but they haven't been meeting for the last few months. I think they answer to the regional group that hasn't been meeting. So they really have no one to report to, but lately they haven't been meeting. But just the resiliency is one that's active.
And you're currently serving on those?
I am. And I'll continue to do that if nobody else wants to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all of them?
Okay, then we'll move on to the council representation of town advisory committees.
Yep. The first one on the list is the Anchorage Advisory Committee. Past Vice President or Vice Mayor Hossafrost was the representative of that, so it is currently open.
Which one of my colleagues would like to work with the Anchorage Advisory Committee? It's, anyone?
Let me just do this preamble. This is an area I don't know a lot about, but I have visited the facilities, and I've met with our staff representative, who's extremely impressive. And I'm guessing this is not going to be high on the list of my folks, because you guys you're already busy doing a lot of different things. So I would be happy to represent the town council there and take an interest in that committee. They do great work. I know the chair very well, and her husband, and so I'd be happy to participate. Just with the preamble that I'm not a boater, I don't have a lot of background in that area, but I do follow it pretty closely.
All the more reason. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Next one.
Next is the Audit Committee. It was held by Mayor Murphy, so it is vacant right now.
Does anyone have a desire to work with the Audit Committee? Well then, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to stick my nose in again, but I'm always happy to provide free advice. Based upon your first meeting as mayor, since you had tasked Councilor King with the fiscal sort of oversight responsibilities and working with the Audit Committee, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot, John, but I think it might be appropriate with for John to be that liaison to that committee, given the instructions that you gave early in the first meeting. But I would yield to anybody else who may have strong feelings about it.
The mayor's first mistake, but I will accept it. Thank you.
Okay. The Bay Oaks Recreational Campus Advisory Board. Currently it is Mayor Allers.
Yeah, I've been on that for quite a while. I think it's very interesting, although I think now would be the time for someone else to step in and be part of that. So I'll yield to my fellow members to see if anybody's interested in being the liaison for that.
And I was a member of BORCAB, and so I would love to be the liaison.
Yeah. Cultural and Environmental Learning Center Advisory Board, CELCAB. It is currently Vice Mayor Adderholt.
I very much enjoy serving on that, and I would be happy to continue to serve on that unless somebody feels very strongly about it.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Marine Resources Task Force, it's currently Councilmember Veach.
Councilor Veach, would you like to
I feel like I'm planted in that committee, so I'm perfectly happy to stay. If someone really wants to get involved, they're a good committee. I'd be happy to let them, but I'm also happy to serve.
No, I think you've done a great job. So.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, it is currently Mayor Allers.
Yeah, that's one I would like to stay on, unless someone has a very deep urge to take that. It's very important to me, so I would like to continue with that if it's okay with my fellow members. Okay.
Be safe.
That's all of them.
Okay. Any other councilman? Councilor Adderholt, Vice Mayor Adderholt. I'm gonna get used to saying that.
I have a couple things. to the gentleman who had asked about the permit fee range in terms of dates, I have this written down in my notes, so please don't quote me on this, but just to give you a general sense, I understand the Fort Myers Beach Fire District started their proposal on October 17th, and that went for 90 days, just to give you a rough idea of where we might be. Don't quote me on that, but it was in my notes somewhere, so just to answer your question. I would respectfully ask our new town manager to add to your extremely long list already, if you'd be so kind as to use your contacts and try to find out who the government affairs liaison is for Comcast Xfinity, and see if they can come over and maybe at our meeting and or to you personally, whatever's most convenient, and see if you can get them to, and potentially also to CenturyLink as well and to other internet providers to the island, and just give the public an update as to how they're doing, anything we can do to help them, help us, give us a sense of timelines, just a rough idea. I've got to think there's somebody at Comcast Xfinity who would love to come and tell their story and give us an update. There's so many people on this island who work from home, have businesses on the island that desperately need internet service. I understand they sent us an email a while ago that was general in nature, and it would be great to have somebody either come to the next council meeting or quite honestly the M&P meeting. I'm sure we could make an exception to have them speak if the mayor's permission, just to get an update on. We've heard very little on the internet front, and I just think that's very important to people as we try to rebuild. I would also ask to my colleagues, can I suggest just an idea for an upcoming M&P meeting? There's been a lot of discussion of our school, and rightfully so. I wonder if we could put on the M&P calendar or schedule the concept of the town partnering with the Fort Myers Beach Chamber, partnering with our largest employers, partnering with the PTO for the town, and see if we can put in place a program that would help employers on the island as they bring on new employees and, quite frankly, reach out to existing employees, the opportunity to have their child be enrolled in the Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. Generally what happens is they drop them off on their way to work at the school, they participate at the school, they go to the Bay Oaks after-school programs, then they pick them up and they take them home. I just have to say, I don't think we have done a good enough job promoting that, and I think there's a lot of employees on the island who don't know about that beautiful opportunity. The ones who utilize it love it, and I just wondered if we could bring some attention to it, and in concert with the chamber, again, large employers and the PTO, see if we could work up some kind of a program where we could help to get the word out, particularly as employees are onboarded, as well as making sure we reach out to all the existing employees on the island to see if we can help get those numbers up for the school. Just a thought.
I certainly support that.
I think we just need 2 to get it on the agenda, so I thank you for that. Lastly, I wanted to thank, John had mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to thank, we did a little show, we're going to do another one today, maybe a couple today, this Key Questions for Key Staffers. It's on our website. Town did a great job. Jason Smalley, Jason Greens, Stephen Popesky, our key planning, building, permit people of answering the most frequently asked questions. But I also wanted to thank Beach Talk Radio, who helped us magnify that message. As a result of the town's social media platforms, we had 1,000 people listen as a result of that. But because of Beach Talk Radio playing it before their show on Saturday, we had an additional 2,000 people listen to that program, and it's not terribly riveting, but at the same time, there's so much information in there about all the questions people are asking about the 50% rule, permitting, zoning, what you need to do to try to build back on this island. And I just wanted to thank, first of all, the town staff who did a great job with it, but also to Beach Talk Radio for helping us to get the word out. That's all I've got, Mr. Oh, you're gonna discuss the curfew. Is that on your agenda?
Yes, I'll talk about that.
That's all I've got then. Thank you.
Beach?
Yeah, I know. I saw the offer to buy a new clock for Times Square. I've also heard there's other efforts to that. One problem I have is I don't know if we really know what Times Square is going to look like being redeveloped in a V zone. I wonder if we can help facilitate maybe a charrette with the beachfront property owners and businesses with some town staff to figure out what they can do and maybe start moving forward on what the future of Times Square is going to look like. Because I know it's tricky in a V zone.
Perhaps that could be something that Vice Mayor Adderholt has with one of your YouTube videos. That could be a topic of discussion.
As we progress further down that, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, and also the magician is here. If he's really good, if he can make some debris disappear. I know there's some piles. I don't know how good you are. So I have a question. I don't know if I don't really see anybody from Crowder Gulf here, but my understanding was that once the southern bridge was open, they were going to move debris to Lover's Key, both the debris that's on the street and start moving the debris that's at Bay Oaks. I was out there the other day and I noticed that they seem to be putting more debris still at Bay Oaks. So does anybody know if they are actually working on reducing the pile at Bay Oaks?
It's my understanding that they're going to continue to use both sites to be as efficient as possible. I have not heard anything about closing down the Bay Oaks site, but they are hauling. My understanding is that they're hauling at night now to be able to diminish that pile as fast as they can.
So are they moving from Bay Oaks to Lover's Key at night?
No. So they're moving, once it goes to Bay Oaks or Lover's Key, then it gets loaded into a truck to another processing site where they break it down even more before it goes onto its final resting site.
Okay.
Is the flow, is my understanding.
Okay. I was also going to mention something about beach cleanup. On the walk here, I noticed that they had those claw trucks, but they have them with big tires that's made for the beach. It was on the beach. I saw plenty of signs where they've been removing larger debris from the beach as I was walking here this morning. I think they're concentrating on the state land because I didn't see them go into the dry sand. They were staying in the wet sand as they're going down. Additionally, I've been in conversations with Keep Lee Beautiful, and they're working towards a beach cleanup. They said now they have a site at the north end of the island where volunteers can park, which is critical to get them on the beach to help clean up. I suggested that in the middle of the island we have some churches that may be available to help people park. And one of the problems they said is south, because when you get south of Lake Santini, there's no kind of public space that can be used. And so I was in conversation with a couple of condos down there to see if they'll allow volunteers to park in their condo parking lots to go and clean the beach up in front of the condos. So that's kind of going on now. I mean, you can talk on about beach cleanup too, or is that?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that a little bit.
Okay. You want to just, I have a couple more things, but you want to say what you're going to say, and then you can.
So I was contacted the other day by the owners of Tuna Skin, who we all know put on a very large beach cleanup. They've been in conversations with local beach vendor, the Webbers, about working with Keep Lee Beautiful and essentially having one very large cleanup. Obviously, as you said, the beach cleanup is happening. Crowder Golf is out there every day cleaning up the beach. The Webbers and the Faircloths, I believe, are helping rake up the sand to get more debris up. So just in the last week, if you haven't been out there, there's been a tremendous amount of debris picked up, but there's still a tremendous amount more. It's still important that if you have beachfront property that you go to iandebriscleanup.com and fill out that right of entry form so that they can go into the dry sand and remove debris. They had talked about doing a collaborative effort with all the groups to clean up the beach somewhere in the middle of December. That would allow enough time for Crowder Golf to get as much of the big debris cleaned up as possible so that when we mobilize a very large group, in my opinion, that's going to be out there to help clean up, that they're not having to worry about the big objects that are a little bit more dangerous and stuff that we can fit in bags. So I think it's a very good idea. I think Tuna Skin does a very good job every year of putting that event on. And the fact that they're willing to work with the other groups that have a mission to be able to clean up the beach, we could really have one really large beach cleanup if we all work together. So that would be my recommendation, is to work through, let Tuna Skin and the Webbers take the lead on that. They'll contact and coordinate all the people that we had already discussed to set a date somewhere in mid-December where we can all get out there and get that beach cleaned up. We want to make sure that it's safe, obviously, for everybody to go out there, or as safe as it can be before we get too many people out there too fast.
Hey, thanks. We all feel for the school. I appreciate as many people to go out tomorrow night as I can to try to support our school. I think the message that I think that would resonate more with the school board is just what can we do as a community? What resources can we bring to bear to help with the school? You've already heard that there's people who are willing to go and help clean out the school. I know there may be liability issues with that. There's also the Beach Kids Foundation has been very effective at fundraising for scholarships. I think that we can bring these to bear and go to the in front of the school board and ask them what we can do to keep the school open instead of just demanding they keep it open, because I think we have I think that would sell well with them. I also think that we do have a lot of resources that can be brought to bear for the school. Then the last thing I have is I think we should keep our eye on what we can do to help accelerate the permitting process. And one thing I think we should consider is allowing the town manager to look at bringing on consultants or staff to help with the permitting process, because we know we're going to be getting a lot of requests and there's going to be a lot of work to do with that. And another is I went and I walked around the Bay Oaks Gymnasium the other day, and it seems to be in remarkably good shape. I think another important thing for the interaction with the public, for permits, for all these things that are important, is a lot of people, it's just a huge benefit to walk into a building and talk to somebody. Sit down with a piece of paper and talk to somebody. And they mentioned that, we can put a request out for quote if we approve it, to see what it would cost to get that Bay Oaks building up, what we expect it to look like. And then they said 90 days to get the work done. To me, that seems pessimistic. I think we can get there faster, because it seems structurally the building is in really good shape. And even if we just have a big room with a bunch of cubicles, having a building that people can walk into and talk to somebody, I think would help the public out a great deal.
Since you brought it up, I'll touch on that real quick. So we had a meeting yesterday with Director Guthrie and his staff, and discussed what are our next steps as far as some of these assets that we see out here are going to be leaving today or tomorrow. So there's been initial discussions. They're still doing the cost analysis, obviously, to get what would be a bunch of anybody that's maybe seen the DeAngelis Diamond setup that they have over there by Margarita that they work out of. It's basically a bunch of buildings put together to create one large working space. They're looking at getting that for us here to work out of Town Hall. So that would be our temporary Town Hall while we find a long-term solution before we can rebuild. They're also doing a fire department, which will be at the front of the property here. And also the discussion was about having a similar facility to bring back our 2 medical facilities, so that everything would be encompassed within 1 square footprint of where we're at now, to be able to house our employees, to answer the questions. People can walk in and ask a question. You'll be able to come and see the doctors that you've been used to seeing down at the 2 clinics on the south end, and then also have our fire and rescue that would be on the same site. So the Bay Oaks is still being looked at. Our new interim manager has got another idea. He wants to take a look at another place today. So those are being worked on. It's a step moving forward, but for now we're going to work with what we have. But I can tell you that Mr. Ward and that team are working very hard to get us a solution. And Larry, he's not in here, but he's on it.
Now, is that is the demolition of Town Hall, is that waiting on an insurance claim? Does anybody know? I mean, because it seems like we're pretty packed in here. Where I feel like we're taking the fire department's space when they could really use it as well, and it'd be nice to have more room.
Yeah, we've had collaborative communications with the fire department. They're fine with the footprint. I think that they've already had prearranged to set up in the front. They'll be able to work with that. They're also in talks with Diamond Head to use some of their space to be able to do some of their things that they need to do out of there. So they do not see an issue with that, us being here, until we can figure out exactly what's going to happen with the building next door and our temporary facility that we'll have to use going forward until we can get a permanent facility built.
All right. Thanks, Mayor.
Reach? That does it. Councilwoman Woodson?
I have a number of things. So the permitting process for food trucks is in place. There's this whole concept that we talked about even in public comment about the public bathrooms and sanitary fixtures and that type of thing. Is it something that we should be adding public bathrooms and sanitation stations into that actual permit, that the owner of the permit also has to provide that on their property. Because I went past Times Square today and all of those facilities are gone. They have like 2 small facilities right at the end where Kilwins was. But that's like for the whole Times Square coming up there. So that's just for the...
Counselor, it's a great point, and I support you on that. I did talk to one of the owners there who's got a food truck who we all know, and I think he said, to your point, it's very important to have those restrooms there, but he said what's currently there is working. He's just terrified they're going to take those away. So if we could maintain at a minimum what we currently have in that Times Square area, he said that would work fine for now. As the presence increase, maybe we'll have to grow that. But at least in Times Square, they're okay. But I would say to our new town manager, they're just hopeful that those facilities will stick around for a while because they really need them.
Perhaps this is something that we could put in as a mission through WebEOC to have portable facilities at the Times Square area at least.
I wonder if it's also within the qualifications of the TDC to provide. I know before they provided restrooms on beach, beach accesses and whatnot. I understand there may be some difficulty to replacing the bathrooms at Lynn Hall Park because of the zone they're in. So if we maybe TDC has some money, we can get those one of the restroom trailers down there.
The other, along with the food trucks, approached about also approving containers for liquor consumption. And these containers would only be brought forth by the restaurants that actually have a state license for liquor. There's 2 different types and that type of thing, so we'd have to look at that. But containers are, my understanding is a food truck is mobile, so therefore they cannot have liquor. However, a container, if that on their property, that can be a fixture, and therefore they can serve liquor out of the container with the appropriate, and keep cutting out here, with the appropriate licensing. So is that something that we want to talk about and possibly move forward with? Because I know there's a few restaurants that are pretty close to being ready to go with that.
I would just say as long as they follow the appropriate state guidelines, which I understand they want to follow the state guidelines.
They want to.
I'm
Yes.
comfortable with moving forward with that.
I agree. I'm kind of, so food trucks, they're too mobile to serve alcohol, is that?
They're mobile, so
I guess-
therefore drinking and driving.
Everything in a truck is considered to go?
Well, it can, to go, but a container is a stationary. They would actually literally have a space for it, and it doesn't have wheels, and it's set there like a pod kind of thing. There's a number of restaurants that are moving forward with that right now. Yeah.
That's something that we want to put then on the upcoming M&P for discussion. Okay, would that suffice?
Yep, that would be great for next week. Okay. The Beach Elementary, we've all talked about. I mean, I am a huge proponent of that, and I plan to be at that meeting tomorrow with the school board, superintendents, whoever we're meeting with. There's been some discussion, too, about clearing Bayside Park. It is semi-cleared right now, but it has still a lot of debris, and it's unsafe. But there was thought of, we talked about having the magician's show from 4 to 7, family outings, that type of thing. But what about making Bayside Park, clearing it, having it safe, and have that as a location for Friday night get-togethers, either concerts or people playing, or a family type gathering spot, and it's owned by the town. So it's something that we would have to take on with the cleaning and that type of thing, but make it a welcome area at the end of Old San Carlos, in addition to whatever we do for Times Square at this point, so that we have some borders here and people can come and they have a place to go.
That was on my list, but since you brought it up, I'll touch on that.
Okay.
I did take Director Guthrie by that site yesterday and mentioned almost that exact same thing, that it's the closest park that we have to being able to open quickly, being as we opened it. He was very in tune with that. He is moving forward with trying to make that a reality. So anything that he has told me he's willing to do, he has done so far. So I have no reason to believe that that is not going to be a completed mission. So that process has been started yesterday.
Fabulous. And there's also been a lot of discussion about new positions that we may or may not want to hire. I mean, personally, I have a list that I've kind of put together. Obviously, we now have our interim town manager, so I'm thinking that he could really help me get organized around this. So basically, Keith and Chris would be here. We have John Ward from the state. But we also need to look at a full-time town manager, and that could take a while, and we need to get that search going. I'm not saying we have to go out to search. We don't have to pay for it. I think it's something that we can advertise, have a search committee put together, and agree on what that profile is, agree on everyone that, what their responsibilities kind of person that we're looking for long-term, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be one main position. We also have been operating without a director of finance. I would like to see that position be considered and brought on board to work in conjunction with the town manager as a partnership or check and balances, or however you want to look at it. There's discussion about building.
Councilor Woodson, just on that point, if I could, to your point, before we lose Jim Steele, Jim, you were the chair of the audit committee before you took on this task. Would you just comment on if you feel, it's just because our new town manager sitting right next to you, and Councilor Woodson raised this, do you feel like it's necessary that we have a finance director for the town of Fort Myers Beach?
Hello?
There you go.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get
need
you on the
one.
record for that. Thanks. Sorry about that. I just wanted to get that on the record. Yep.
So happy you're in agreement, because I think it's critical as the town moves forward, especially with all the reimbursement program, the expenditures we're going to have with people doing, I mean, we need that check and balance. The permitting department, I've had a number of people contact me. I think we really need to look at the organizational design in general. I can work with the town managers on that, either to streamline, look at the people that are in place right now. Are they the right fit as we go forward? What is the new profile? What is the culture that we want to represent? I think these are huge items as we rebuild our town and take a look at. We've also talked about on and off, having local representation for our town attorney. Right now we have attorney that, fortunately, unfortunately for him, he has to travel from Miami, but there has been discussion. I have had local firms reach out to me. I'm asking if we would consider putting together an RFP for outside counsel, to be local outside counsel. I don't know exactly what the process is, and maybe Chris can help us with that, but I think it's something that we should actually look into doing and actually start that search sooner than later.
Just so you know, I think it was even when I was in council just before, that we tried to look for a local attorney and just really couldn't find anybody.
I'm sorry.
That we tried to look for a local attorney and really couldn't find anybody qualified. And I understand wanting to maybe change things up, but I am concerned about a loss of institutional knowledge.
I think that's something that we can discuss and agree upon and see which way we want to head. Is that something that is headed up by the town manager to that RFP process, or what? I don't even know what the process would be on all of these positions of getting into alignment and agreement. Do we want to look for these people or do we not?
Well, personally, I think we need to be a little cautious on moving forward with directing the town manager. I think the most important position that we should find is the town manager, the replacement, the long-term solution. What Mr. Holly may put in place, the next person may not like. So I think we need to give Mr. Holly some time to work through it. He's only been on the job for a couple of days. So I think we need to give him a little bit of time to meet with the staff, speak to the staff. He's been doing this a long time. I'm confident that he'll be able to determine who, as I believe you said many times, is either on the bus or off the bus, and work through that. And if we can start that, what's that? I believe that we need to start. The first thing I think we should really focus on is the start of getting out there to find our long-term solution for town managers, so that we can start building that foundation that I think you're speaking of to get to where we're at. But if there are streamlined issues that we can do, I think I have all the confidence that Mr. Holly will be able to identify those, bring it to our attention, and we can address them as he brings them to us.
Okay. And then the last thing I have, it did not go unnoticed with me what Mr. Steele said about the salary increases that took place by Mr. Hernstadt edict, and I'm questioning whether that is something that is appropriate, inappropriate. I'm not happy with it. I'm sure many aren't happy with that, but is that something that we need to further look into?
Well, I guess, as I've said many times, I'm not one to go backwards. Was it something that I think was appropriate? Probably not. I think it was identified. It was corrected by Mr. Steele. I mean, I don't know how many resources we want to put behind something that happened that we can't necessarily change now. So all we can do is focus on where we're going, in my opinion, and just keep moving forward.
Make one comment on that. Last Friday, we reverted salaries back to normal. So everybody's on their normal pay scale now.
Okay. All right, that's it for my list.
Councilor King?
Yeah, a couple of mine have already been knocked off. Thank you for that, Councilor Woodson. I am planning on attending the school board meeting tomorrow too, but I know we had talked about sending a letter to the school board. Did that get formulated and did that get sent?
Gave the letter to the town clerk. She will send that out to all of you guys if she hasn't already today. I plan on being there tomorrow to read that letter, okay, if the council is okay with me taking that lead and being the voice for the council. But she will send you that letter if she hasn't already. If you have any corrections or changes, please let her know. If you want to add something, please let her know. She'll let me know, and we'll get it amended.
And I did send a separate letter just under my own name, not the council's banner, to the school board.
Thank you. Something else, and I see Chad in the back of the room, and I'll use a phrase that Councilor Aderholt, Vice Mayor Aderholt, uses a lot. I don't want to put him in a spot, but you did send out an email, and I did receive something along the lines as well about a release today from Lake Okeechobee that's going to be starting and continuing, and possibility of obviously red tide contamination. Is there something that we have the ability to do other than maybe issuing a letter or something like that?
Chad, you want to come up and answer that?
Hey, morning everyone. Chad Schutz, environmental staff for the town of Fort Myers Beach. Yeah, you can address U.S. Army Corps. Other municipalities and localities have written letters to the Army Corps expressing your concern. I can send you examples of that. I mean, just looking back to the last time we had a big issue is Hurricane Irma and the 2018 fish kill that we had following that. So the forecasts are there. And I think expressing your concern as a municipality on behalf of your constituents would be a wise thing to do.
To see us do that then.
I would just see for ease, Chad, could you take a look at what other communities have done that have consistent interests with the town of Fort Myers Beach? And could you just submit a draft then to the council? And I think it's a good idea, John, to have us sign that. If you think it would be helpful to the cause for us to add our voice, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but if there was a community that has a letter that's already been done that's consistent with with our interests, we could model that, use that as our model, and just move forward, save you time.
Yes, sir.
If you think that helps, Chad.
Yep.
Thanks, Chad.
You're welcome.
That takes care of mine. Thank you.
All right. As you guys have said, everything has been touched on with the exception of the curfew. We did speak with Captain Layler from the Lee County Sheriff's Office. The 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock curfew will not be an issue for them. However, the South Bridge, because Bonita has a different curfew, they have 7 to 7, the contractors will not be allowed on until 7 o'clock. Residents can get through at 6 o'clock, but contractors on the south end only will not be able to get on until after 7 o'clock.
And Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, so what about the 7 o'clock p.m. curfew on the south end? Can people leave the island up till 8 o'clock then and come back and forth? Or is it just the morning that's impacted?
It was a little vague, but I believe the best practice would be if your contractor or you have contractors that if they're using the south end of the island, that they adhere to Bonita's 7 to 7 curfew. But residents do not have to.
So a resident who's on the south end, often many people come to the Bayfront Bistro on the south end or establishments on the south end. As long as they're not a contractor, they shouldn't have any problems with the new curfew. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that fair to assume?
That's my understanding, yes. That if you're a resident of Fort Myers Beach, that they will let you through the Bonita blockade or whatever you want to call it down there to get back to the island. Just the contractors, they'll have the issues. So the recommendation is if you have a contractor that wants to start earlier, that you have them come around the north side. It is a little bit more of a drive, that's understanding, but to help alleviate the traffic in the morning, my understanding is there's a lot of traffic backed up because there's contractors waiting to get on. So if you have a contractor, I was one, when I did it, I wanted to get there as soon as I could, and I would go out of my way to make sure I could get there as early as I could. I would suggest that you send them around over the North Bridge so that they can start work at 6 o'clock if that's what they choose to do, and work till 8 o'clock if that's what they choose to do.
I certainly understand and respect the dilemma. Could we have the town manager direct the PIO to release that information to the public sometime today? Because there's a lot of people are interested in that issue. But
sure, Mr. Town Manager, would you do that? I believe Jenny is fully aware of the situation. She can probably get that out fairly quickly. And that's all I have on my list. So
move to adjourn.
Hold on, just a second, Mr. Herron.
Apologize. We do need to extend the a declaration of emergency.
Is that something that I have to read into?
Just a motion to extend the declaration of emergency, second and vote, and we'll give you the resolution to sign.
So moved.
I'll second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0.
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are adjourned at 11:58.